Major Democrat donors have frozen $90 million in pledges to Democrats, and they are demanding that Joe Biden step down if they want this money. I do not see how this man can recover from this. I mean, his press conferences following the debate have only made things worse. And now more and more of the donors are saying no way. So we'll talk about that. He's being flat out told by Democrats to resign more and more. We've got bigger news with Elon Musk donating to a PAC to elect Donald Trump. And Facebook has reinstated Donald Trump's accounts, removed the restrictions. And it's funny because just one day ago, Donald Trump kind of issued this veiled threat against Zuckerbucks, basically saying we're going to go after everybody who was rigging the election. And then Facebook instantly is like, hey, we're going to bring your accounts back over here. Don't get mad at me. We'll see how that ends up. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. Pick up your Cast Brew coffee. Everyone's favorite, of course, is Appalachian Nights. You've also got your Rise with Roberto Jr., Stand Your Grounds, Mr. Boca's Pumpkin Spice Experience. We thought this one was going to be gone a while ago, but we accidentally reordered more. And once it's gone forever. So when you buy it, we got K-Cups, but we also have Alex Stein's Primetime Grind and Ian's Graphene Dream available at castbrew.com. If you want to support the work that we do, this is our coffee company. Buy coffee from us because it tastes great. And head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because that funds our work directly. And if you like the work we're doing, that's what you got to do. We're going to have a show July 18th in Milwaukee. Just outside the RNC, Mike Lindell's going to be there. Luke Rudkowski, Hannah Claire Brimelow, Libby Emmons. I will be there, of course. And you can pick up your tickets. I think there are still tickets. I'm not sure. We may have sold out already. That's at timcast.com. And if you like that we do those excursions, then again, become a member by clicking join us at timcast.com. We want to be in Milwaukee for the RNC because we think it matters. There's going to be a lot of people there. We're going to have various individuals joining the show, of course. We're going to have a great Culture War show with Jeremy from the Quartering Friday morning. We're really excited for that. Plus, I think Jeremy will be joining us on one of the nights when we're out in Milwaukee as well. But I want to stress, we don't make money doing these things. So it's going to be very, very expensive for us to do them, but we do them because we think we should and it's important. And if you agree that we should travel and do these shows on location, then please consider becoming a member. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Kyle Becker.
Hey, it's great to be on the show, Tim. I'm looking forward to everything you got lined up for us tonight. Should be very interesting.
Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm an independent journalist, a producer, writer. I basically just a political analyst and a commentator. So
right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. And because the man is here from overseas, Connor Tomlinson is joining us once again.
Yes, thank you very much, Tim. I fly back tomorrow, so everyone gets a break from me. Connor Tomlinson, writer and host over at LotusEaters.com, specifically of Tomlinson Talks. Carl would have been here, but he's an old man and he had to go to bed, so I'm standing in instead. Yes, I am shaming him. Yeah, but
you were here last night. You were on for the morning show. You're back once again. We're excited to have you, so thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
We got Ian.
Hi, everyone. Hey, Tim. Hey, guys. Hey, Connor, what's your Twitter account?
At Con_Tomlinson.
Thanks, man. And Kyle, you're Kyle N.A. Becker.
Yes.
I'm tweeting it out right now, so I want to make sure I got it right. Yo, check it out. Graphene Dream. I haven't tried the coffee yet. Cast Brew coffee. I'm about to, though. This weekend, I'm pumped. It's low acidity, so less inflammation.
You should do like a live taste test review.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I'll either go live or just
live on X.
That's a great idea. Okay, thanks.
I'm a marketing person today. Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimelow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com, a scanner news. Follow all of their work at Timcast News on the internet. Let's get started.
Here we go from SCNR.com. Major Democrat donors freeze $90 million in pledges to largest Biden super PAC until he agrees to exit the race. The frozen donations reportedly include multiple eight-figure commitments. According to a report from the New York Times, the frozen donations include eight-figure commitments. The decision to withhold such enormous sums of money is one of the most concrete examples of the fallout from Mr. Biden's poor debate performance at the end of June. The Times report cited two unnamed sources who only agreed to speak to the paper under the condition of anonymity. They say the two people briefed on frozen pledges declined to say which individual donors were pulling back promised checks, which were estimated to total above or around $90 million. It was not clear how much of the pledged money was earmarked for future forward super PACs versus its nonprofit arm, which has also been running advertising in key battleground states. The super PAC has been shying away from making major strategic decisions until it gets clarity on who will be atop the ticket, according to a separate person close to the group. Now, I'll say this. I don't know this means that donors are saying no to Joe Biden. It sounds like what they're saying is a combination of no to Joe Biden, but also what commercials are we running? We're not going to spend millions of dollars on ads for a guy who won't be the nominee in a week. So what can they do? I think this is one of the biggest dominoes to fall, and it's going to result in, it's the inevitable. Joe Biden cannot be the nominee. At this point, the money that's not going to Democrats for the presidential race will negatively impact all of the congressional races, and there is going to be a cacophony of people, Democratic Party members, just screaming, Biden's got to go.
I think you're right. One of the issues here is that they want to have success in other parts of the race, and so much of presidential election cycles are wrapped up who's on top of the ticket. So I've seen a lot of reporting that donors are sort of caught in between. They don't necessarily like Biden. They also don't want to spend money on someone that they don't like. On the other hand, some are pulling out, holding all of their donations everywhere, and some are saying, well, we'll still give down ticket, but we don't want to give to Biden. It's just becoming a more chaotic system every day.
Yeah, I think that earlier Nancy Pelosi tipped her hand when she basically gave Biden a week to make a decision, and she was,
after he sent out his letter saying, I've made a decision, I'm staying in.
right, exactly. And then Obama, of course, with George Clooney, he runs the letter by him, I love you, Joe, but you got to go. This is about your age. This is about anything. So they're kind of softly trying to nudge him out of the White House before the convention, so they don't have to pull a coup and go to secret ballots and super delegate him. But in Michigan tonight, Joe Biden's out there saying, I'm not going anywhere. It's almost like Wolf of Wall Street. It's like, but the knives are out in the media. Obama's basically behind the scenes with a lot of these, media outlets. So I think that's really, the market imprimatur that, Barack is kind of behind the scenes putting on this. That but Biden's people seem to be the last to know that
they're the holdouts.
They're done. Yeah. They're done. But
so here's the question that I have, right? Because all of this speculation is in the press, and there's been speculation, of course, about Hillary Clinton, Whitmer, Newsom, Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris even. When you look to the prediction markets, I got a predicted pulled up right here. Michelle Obama is only at around 6 cents a share, right? Joe Biden once again is the front runner. That's surprising. Kamala Harris jumped ahead with, earlier I think she had 53 cents and Biden had 33. It was a huge split. Biden's back on top. But if people really do think, one, that Barack Obama is orchestrating a coup behind the scenes and that Joe Biden will likely be forced out because of it, then why not bet on Michelle Obama? Why isn't Michelle Obama higher up than Kamala Harris?
I heard that she said she didn't want to do it.
She doesn't want to do it. She's never been politically ambitious.
Right.
But what does that mean?
Hillary Clinton had already secured her place in the Senate by the time her husband was leaving office, right? She was ready to take her time as a first lady and launch her next phase of her political career. Michelle Obama, has been on the yachts and has these adult daughters now. She's happy to be wealthy and influential and to do the talk show circuit when she has a book out, but she's never really shown any interest in holding some level of political office, at least post her days as the first lady.
But I don't think a lack of displaying a desire for this is indicative of she doesn't want to do it.
Well, something that I would find interesting is if Obama was truly behind the George Clooney op-ed, why was her name not floated in the op-ed? Because I believe it was only Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom that was mentioned. Mm-hmm. And you're right in that if she was politically ambitious, the time to do it would have been off the back of Becoming, which in the UK was over every single billboard on all of the bus stops and all the train stations. So there was a mass marketing campaign around it. She's still looked upon favourably by the sort of normie establishment. Doesn't seem she wants to do it, even though she probably would be a compelling candidate for some of those people that think Joe Biden has his brain leaking out of his ears, but don't think they could vote for Trump based on vibes.
I think in the background of this is the logistics of trying to get anybody except Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, because there are a number of swing states, and Pennsylvania being one, where you cannot, after you get the delegates in that state, you cannot switch. After the primary, you cannot switch them out. They don't transfer. A lot of states they do, but there are 3 or 4 major swing states where they just won't.
You're being bugged.
Yes, I know. Well, look, I hit a
Pence's
nerve.
best friend
I hit a
is
nerve
on
there. Yeah, Mike Pence. There you go. So, I think the logistics of it is really, really difficult to try to just airdrop Michelle Obama, in a parachute at the convention and just be like, ta-da, here's your new candidate. I think. also there's the other factor of Kamala Harris getting passed over. I think they made a big deal out of making her, essentially a DEI thing. I don't think it's unfair to say because of the way Biden, postured it at the time. And that's going to cause a major schism. So we could see something at the convention like 1968 Redux if anybody but Kamala Harris is the nominee. But I think, what you said about Michelle Obama is valid. She is definitely like the betting markets I see reflect the odds of her just suddenly being thrust to the
but what I'm saying is, with all of these people suggesting it, her odds should be higher. Everyone is convinced it's going to be Biden or Kamala Harris, which I think is stupid. I think makes no sense. Certainly could be the case, but Gavin Newsom should be higher than Kamala. The idea that there is no way around Kamala Harris does not make sense. She's not going to do better than Joe Biden. No. So if the real issue is that Joe can't win, Kamala can't win either. So right. they would need Newsom or Michelle Obama. When we hear that it is Obama himself behind the scenes orchestrating this, I think that is even a tiny morsel of evidence that Michelle Obama is going to be the pick.
I just don't agree. I think that if she had wanted a political career, we would have known by now. And I suspect even if Obama is the one behind it, he's like, Michelle, please run. And she's like, absolutely not. Please leave me alone. I told you before. I've told you every year I don't want to do this. I think you're right.
But we don't know.
There's a certain level. I mean, we don't know it, but we also can make an assumption based on the fact that she didn't seek political office after the White House. I think you're right that sense. I think it makes a lot of sense given other people's history. She faded to the background pretty happily.
The lack of evidence is not evidence of...
Well, I think she would also be giving more political appearances and would be out there a little bit more. And you would see reports.
Closer to you.
You would see reports in the New York Times where quietly behind the scenes, Michelle Obama, their fundraising, like the fundraising chatter. I think you would see that around Michelle Obama because they would get all excited about it, and we wouldn't get these stories like super PACs freezing $90 million. There would be on the back channel with them going, hey, just stay patient. We have a plan. We've got Michelle in our back pocket. She's going to be excited, but now's not the time to do it. We're going to wait until the last minute in August, and then we'll make our push. So just hang tight. Democrats are pretty good about communicating back channel and staying, in lockstep. So I think that's...
I think part of the appeal of Michelle Obama is that Kamala Harris is not good enough, right? When they were running Joe Biden, they said, here is Joe Biden, but he will sort of be the last white man candidate, and then we'll have a diverse lady president. And they tapped Kamala Harris, I assume because she was just in the race already and had the face recognition. But it's not that they think that Kamala will succeed, that they think she should be on the tickets. It's just that she's there. And I think if they could swap in Michelle Obama, maybe they would do it, again, for the same sort of visual reasons. But again, I think the big obstacle there is Michelle doesn't want to do it. If you look further down ticket, they're not tapping AOC. No one's throwing out anyone else. They really don't know what to do here.
Well, I think the other thing is Kamala Harris is like the queen of Oppo research, and she feels like she's owed this. And so... what you can see is like if somebody is going to pull a coup on her, she's going to torpedo whoever is going to be the nominee, back channel. She has her ways of just dumping dirt. And, so she's probably doing the power politics thing of like holding some dirt and, holding some things against the other candidates, and very plugged into the DNC, making sure that her people are making it known that they're going to pull some shenanigans. Then, well, she's going to do the same thing right back to them because this is her chance, her moment. She is super ambitious.
Well, and if she thinks there's any chance Biden could win, it behooves her to be like, yes, you win. And then inevitably 1 year into your term, when you can't complete it, you bow out and I get to be the president. Right. I'm sure she's thinking pretty strategically here.
Exactly. We got this from Newsweek. Ted Cruz makes new Michelle Obama prediction. They say Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas suggested that former First Lady Michelle Obama will replace Joe Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket in this year's presidential election. During an interview on Fox Business with host Stuart Varney on Thursday, Cruz asserted that Democrats were freaking out about Biden being their candidate following his widely panned performance at last month's debate. Biden has been under increasing pressure, blah, blah, blah. We know this. And again, I'm looking at this from... It's just Ted Cruz predicting this, but Barack is the one allegedly orchestrating this behind the scenes, which of course means Michelle has some involvement. Newsweek also reported 2 days ago, Michelle Obama fans beg her to replace Joe Biden, save our country. Obama, whose husband is former President Barack Obama, I didn't realize that, has never run for public blank typo, office or expressed an interest in becoming president, but there has been frequent speculation. However, back in March, Michelle Obama's office says the former lady will not be running for president in 2024.
Some of this does smell like manufactured consent to me. I mean, when the people that they're citing in that Newsweek article is all these Facebook comments say they want Michelle Obama to be president. I mean, yes, congratulations on writing your letter to Santa, but you're right in that these are the mouthpieces of the regime, so this also could be planting the seed ahead of a Biden being deposed.
But you mean this is like they're prepping the public to accept Michelle Obama?
It could be possible, yes.
Michelle like wears the pants in that relationship. At least the vibe I get, I always have
Agreed.
the way Barack talks about her. She is a kingmaker. She is never wanted to be on stage. Not really. She's there to push her man to the top, and now she wants to go sail off into the sunset. And Barack probably was like, Michelle, you want to? Nope. She's like, nope. And he's like, okay.
So maybe, I don't know. The only public statements we have is that she will not be running in 2024. Everyone says that. Every candidate says it every time, and there's legal reasons why they do, because if they announce that they are, then it restricts them. I suppose she could have said, I'm considering it. I think, however, the only reason we got this story back in March was that they were trying to ice out RFK Jr., and so they were effectively saying, no, we're all behind Joe Biden. He's the best. Now that they've effectively shut down the primaries, and it's going to go to a secret ballot where there's no way an insurgent candidate can win, now they can go, well, everyone's been yelling for me to do it, and for this country, I will.
Well, I think it's a little perfect, and I think that's the fear that a lot of Trump's supporters have, is that Michelle Obama will just infuse that energy into the Democratic base the way Barack did. I would be more readily sold on this scenario if I would have read a lot of Lady Macbeth sort of behind the scenes stories about Michelle Obama in the White House, that she's actually the mastermind behind it all. I mean, you maybe say that about Casey DeSantis, but I don't know about Michelle Obama. So it's a hard sell for me, but it is kind of a perfect marriage.
And I think there are a lot of people throwing out their names right now to be like, oh, well, of course I support Joe, but if all the Facebook comments say they want me to run, I'll do it. I mean, Gavin Newsom's wife had a big profile in the LA Times almost 2 years ago at this point. A lot of people are sort of starting to test the waters to see what the next move in their political future is. But again, that's why I feel like Michelle is happy with her mojitos and her yachts, right? She doesn't need it the way that some people who are still trying to climb the power ladder do.
She also got snubbed pretty hard by the sugar industry. When they got into power, the Obamas, she did this Let's Move campaign, and it was about cutting sugar out of your diet. And then the sugar industry got involved. And they're like, no, we're going to make it an exercise campaign. Forget about the sugar. Let's just dance and stuff.
Don't talk about your diet.
And Katie Couric did a documentary on it called Fed Up, which I highly recommend. It's fascinating. And you see the behind the scenes power of the sugar industry. And after that, Michelle kind of backed out of politics. I think she realized what she was up against and was like, we're in for 8 years and then we're done. I'm not doing that again. I'm not putting myself through that. I'm not putting my family through that. I can see that because she seems like a relatively wholesome woman, like from the outside and watching them. I mean,
other than marrying a man who kills American citizens abroad.
But like, I know that was pretty horrible.
They were married before he did that.
Getting that job is like,
there's such a thing as detecting red flags, ladies and gentlemen.
like getting thrust into become the
that's not a red
commander in
flag
chief
for her.
of the military industrial complex is like, who are you not? You get to decide who am I not going to kill.
That's
like
a
basic
choice.
Kind of, until they slide Kennedy's picture across the table at you, and they're like, choose wisely.
A choice.
As is coming out and saying,
always a
I would have
choice.
had a son like Trayvon and supporting BLM. Like the Obama family are moral write-offs. I think it's not whether or not she has the unimpeachable character to run and take this opportunity. It's whether or not it's the right time for her, and whether or not she's just comfortable enough dictating books and going kayaking.
I love the idea of going, well, Barack Obama did murder a 16-year-old American, but Michelle's the good one. So we'll vote. No, yeah, come on.
I was thinking about
there's
this
no
on
way.
the drive
She sits
over.
down with him at night and she's like, how did it feel to kill that 16-year-old kid? Felt pretty good. She's like, okay.
Like you get that job. I was thinking about you actually, because we were talking about, you're like, what would I do if I was the president? And like, I'm not going to do it. And they're like, oh no, well, but if you don't do it, a lot of people are going to die and a lot of things are going to break down. So you're really going to have to go with this. It's been happening every day before you got here. Now that you're here, push the button, sign the paperwork, because we got to make it happen. You're like, no, I'm not going to do it. They're like, okay, let me tell you this again. A lot of people are going to die and a lot of people are going to lose money if you don't. Now we need you to do this now. And you say, I'm not. Then they slide the picture of Kennedy across the table. And then if you say, I'm not, they'll say, we'll see you later. And you'll probably never see those
Sure
guys
will.
again.
And that's why I said My scenario is one day, and I say this jokingly, I run for president and then I build a 15-inch triple-layered bulletproof plexiglass box in the center of D.C. where I will live with minimal privacy, but just enough privacy because people don't want to see that stuff. But and then I will just start signing executive actions and firing everybody and dismantling administrative bureaucracy. And then once I'm done after 2 weeks, I resign. And then so count your VP debates because I don't care.
I honestly think you'd have to leave the country to run this country in that state, to be like that anti-establishment. You would have to flee because they got you where they want you if you're in D.C.
15-foot concrete slab straight down.
Someone's got to bring you food.
That's right.
They know where you live. They know who's making your food.
That's right.
It's a lot of other. I don't know, man. I'm just saying it's tough not to sign the paperwork to drop the drones in that position because that's like what the machine does. So I don't put too much hate on the guys when they do those things.
You look at what happens to Donald Trump when he says, I'm the boss, we're going to do it my way. They say, well, then you're a Russian spy. Maybe you'll go to prison. And Trump's basically like, I am going to destroy you.
Have you seen?
I hope he gets rid of the bureaucracy and does these things. I'm not super confident.
Have you seen all the hysterics that are on because he had Orban come see him in Mar-a-Lago, and they're like, "But Orban just met with Putin, and so therefore Trump is a horrible Russian supporter," or like whatever it is.
Biden just met with Putin. I mean Zelensky.
Oh, right.
It's so confusing when we have Vice President Trump.
But also, how else are you meant to draw a conclusion to the war? Oh, of course they don't want to because their military contractors are getting a very nice kickback.
And that was your guys' fault.
That was Boris Johnson's
That's right.
fault on the directive of the State Department because, again, we are a vassal state of the global American empire.
I don't want to agree, but I do like the sound of that, so I'll accept it.
You think it's an American empire? I think a lot about this.
I told you.
know.
Five Eyes. It's the Five Eyes.
This is coming.
Because Five Eyes is New Zealand, Australia, the Kingdom of Canada, the Kingdom of Australia, the Kingdom of England, and the United States.
They're not kingdoms.
They are kingdoms. Look up Kingdom of Australia.
I'm aware. So in those countries, the monarch is only a figurehead and he has no executive power.
He can authorize the executive general. What is it?
He can't intervene in the constitution
fire
of those country.
the prime minister. Yeah, he can. What is it called?
It's only in Britain.
The secretary general. What's that role? The guy, the general, something general that can fire the prime minister at any moment. They actually did that in the 70s in Australia. They fired the prime minister.
I don't think that's possible anymore because of constitutional reforms. I mean, if you look on the Canadian government's constitution, they only ever say that King Charles is a figurehead, and yes, he's on the money, but he can't actually intervene in our processes of government. That's only possible in the UK when it's His Majesty's government. You have to go and actively form the government at the behest of the king.
Governor General of Canada.
The king appoints the governor general.
And dismiss the prime minister.
And then the governor general can dismiss the prime minister.
The governor general of Canada represents the monarch, but the process must follow Canadian constitutional conventions. At least that's what
So the king of Canada is Charles. He's the emperor of England, of Australia, of Canada. And I wonder who's really running. I don't think he's running a show. I just think it's the spy clubs like MI6 and CIA.
You're not wrong about the Five Eyes, but I don't think the Five Eyes have interests directly connected with the monarch. Or I don't think at least he's sitting there like dictating it all the time.
Yeah, I don't either. It's like we're at the stage in Rome where it's basically the Praetorian Guards running the show.
Yes, yeah, that's far more accurate,
right.
I'd say. Yeah.
But it does feel like an empire, and I wonder who that Praetorian Guard is at the moment.
I do think it's the global American empire because a lot of it, we take our lead, a lot of it from the State Department and from what the Pentagon says. And mainly because the Thucydides trap of post-war America and Britain, the Marshall Plan meant that the British Empire was contingent on American loans to rebuild itself at home, and so it just sliced off sections of the empire to give to America. This is why the Suez Crisis happened. This is why the State of Israel was set up, and the Britain abandoned their mandate over Palestine. The Americans just nicked a lot of the power.
Can I just point out the United States has military bases in the UK?
Yes.
Because they're a vassal state.
In Germany and Japan and Australia, they've got what is it? Pine Gap in the middle of Australia. It's the largest military base outside the U.S.
We Americans have occupied Germany and Japan since World War II. We've never left.
Mm-hmm. But it's like our military, and who runs that? This military-industrial complex. Who's funding it? Is it the Americans? Is it us? Is it international?
Well, us. Define us.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it the American people? I mean, not really, but it is. The United States has used it as a mechanism for management of the system. So,
anyway, okay. So I agree with that. I don't want to derail or move away. The reason I brought it up was because I'm wondering who's calling these shots. You feel like it's more of an American authority than an imperial British authority.
So I think even if you go back to like JFK era, like we brought up earlier, the CIA complex and the NSA and the IC community has expanded out to the point where they have a surveillance apparatus. They dig up dirt on everybody, every politician, and whoever goes to DC, they are either blackmailed or they become millionaires or they're bribed. So I think like this regime apparatus, they call it the deep state. I guess that's as good a name as any, essentially pulls the levers through this kind of coercion, through honey traps like Epstein. I think that all of this together, this nexus, is what's really behind the scenes. So that's why I agree with like what Vivek Ramaswamy said the other day, that, Kamala Harris is not particularly bright, and Joe Biden's, in cognitive decline, but it doesn't really matter. Because, and I would agree with him, because it's the system. We're all hung up about these different politicians, but they're all pretty much interchangeable. They're just basically the people who they have dirt on that they can get to execute their will. So like Joe Biden and like Hunter Biden, there's a lot of evidence that there were CIA ops around him going to Burisma, getting on the board and making money that way. That's how they get the blackmail on these politicians. They offer them these sweet little deals, so it's a combination of bribery, blackmail. So that's why you see, politicians, when they go there, a lot of time they either have the blackmail, they bribe them. And if in Donald Trump's case, if you don't do that, then they basically call you a Russian spy, like Tim said, or they politically prosecute you, or they really go after you if they really think you're a threat to go after them. I think that's basically what's going on. If you want me to name names, well, I have a family, so I don't know.
There was that business plot, because I want to be like 1941 is when Five Eyes got started, basically as a response to the Nazi Japanese incursion. They're like, well, we need a global spy network or we're going to get destroyed. But then before that, there was the business plot to overthrow the U.S. government, where they wanted Smedley Butler to march on Washington with like 300,000 men, and he refused. World War I general was like, I'm not overthrowing the government. I'm not going to sell a fascist dictatorship. So they've been trying to control it since the Federal Reserve Act.
Right. Well, yeah, you could go back to then, the Creature Jekyll Island and all of that business. But I think like that's what happened to Nixon. Like Nixon found out about the JFK assassination, sat down with the Pentagon, says, I know what happened, wanted to give the information to the American people, and that through that thing, they orchestrated a coup against Nixon with a 2-bit break-in that seems almost laughable in comparison to the scandals that we've seen since, the Obama administration.
Well, here's the interesting thing, right? You go back in time, and Nixon may be thinking, well, what can I do to get this information out? And it's limited, because we know that there's intelligence assets deeply embedded in media. Along comes Donald Trump several decades later, and he's on Twitter. Twitter has a backdoor direct for intelligence agencies. Was it weekly communication? The people high ups at Twitter were communicating with
Twitter files, right?
So still, though, Donald Trump could tweet whatever he wanted and force the media to report whatever he wanted. So he splits the news. You now have the corporate press telling everyone he's a spy, he's a Russian asset, but it wasn't working because independent media was cutting through the noise. They tried to manipulate the game. They tried to control Facebook and Twitter. They did a great job of it, but it wasn't enough to suppress because the internet is too powerful. They'll try and say whatever they want. The thing now that Trump has that past presidents didn't have is a direct channel for mass media, especially now with True Social. So this is why I think we're seeing the bifurcation, the fracturing, and the instability in politics.
Yeah,
one of the reasons.
The Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird, when the CIA was like, we're going to control the media. That was in the 60s or 70s or something. And they succeeded until post 9/11, until the internet kicked into full swing. And now some rando can go out there with, I got the documents, and they can like show you the documents. And boy,
and they'll say it's a cheap fake.
And our internet is just a creature of DARPA and a lot of these other defense industries. Like, they developed it. It's their baby.
So they saw it coming. So they must have known the potential for someone like Donald Trump or Alex Jones or me or someone to like display the data to the humans through the will of whatever else was trying to stop it. So they must have seen it coming, unless they're that short-sighted and they didn't realize.
Well, it's very interesting because I was I was a director of viral media. I was like the forefront of this very powerful sort of digital operation when I was a Media Group of America, and we were right there before Trump got elected the first time in 2016, and we were a powerhouse. Like our readership was overtaking these established, like, big time, like forget NBC News. They were like small fries. Like we blew past all of them. And it wasn't long after Trump was elected. That's when they started the crackdown. It's kind of the blank moment, where they just like, oh no, we can't let this happen. So if I find it very fascinating, the news that Tim alluded to at the top of the show, where Meta says, well, we're going to stop, I'm paraphrasing, committing election interference, and we're going to take the throttle. We're going to, restore this Meta, his Instagram and Facebook accounts, and we'll see how suppressed he is, and see how that plays out in the next couple of weeks. But still, and of course, Elon Musk making that, for me, astounding news, where the European Commission released that Twitter at this point is not in compliance with the DSA, and it has a number of violations, and that Elon said, well, they went to every other very large social media platform, and they all agreed, like, we will suppress and censor, I'm assuming political dissidents or people who don't follow state narratives, or, the narratives on Ukraine, or, all of these other things, and Elon said, well, we're the only one that stood up to them. So it's interesting to see him also like throwing money behind Donald Trump's PAC.
Elon is?
Yeah.
How much money did he throw?
I didn't see the details.
Let's roll. We got the story from Bloomberg.
All right.
Elon Musk donates to Trump, tapping vast fortune to swing the 2024 race. And I'm going to pause before we get into that, because we don't know. My understanding is we don't know the full number, but we'll see if they've updated the source material. It may not be a substantial sum, but we'll see. And apparently Bloomberg is not going to let us see.
Well, something interesting this week.
We'll get a better source on that one.
At NatCon, we were discussing something about this. People were scratching their heads as to why the IVF and abortion pillars have been softened in the Republican Party platform. And I suggested that it might be to court these new Silicon Valley tech pro-natalist types like Peter Thiel, like Simona Malcolm-Collins, and like Elon Musk, who are very big on this stuff as a solution to the population crisis. So the Trump campaign... There's this new thing called Anglo-futurism, which is essentially like using technology to be progressively right-wing. I have my misgivings with it. Elon Musk is one of these guys, and so I wonder if certain things were changed in the platform to attract his support.
What we know is that Bloomberg said it was a sizable amount, and that's it. And that Elon Musk didn't want to donate directly to a campaign. Well, why would he? He's going to give what, $2,300 or something? Okay. You want to make a real impact, you go super PAC. I can understand why Elon Musk wants to see Trump win now, especially considering Elon has been reading and watching the news to the point where he realizes the media's been lying to everybody. And it's really fascinating if you look at Elon's journey, being on Twitter, enjoying himself, looking at memes, laughing, to the point where he bought the platform. And now he's outright like, these people have been lying. They're evil. And I'll tell you this, I would make let's call it a sizable gentleman's bet, which is, I'm not really saying money, but that Elon Musk knows things about what Twitter was doing behind the scenes that he can't publicly disclose, that would probably make you crap your pants. And so he's behind the scenes. He's looking at national security information with Twitter, and they're saying, you cannot release that. That is, what the deep state does is they issue what's called the National Security Letter. They did this to an email provider that I believe Snowden was using, and I always forget the name of this company. They went to them and said, here's a national security letter. You must give us information on these users, and you can't tell anyone. So instead, he said, I'm shutting my company down. Screw you. I'm willing to bet Elon Musk dug a ton of that stuff up. And they said, or I'll put it this way, the reason why they only release certain emails at a time is because of national security restrictions they have on that information.
That makes us, what kind of stuff do you think, when you're thinking national security risks, like what kind of data?
No, they're lying. They're outright.
You're just calling it national security
Absolutely.
risks, but it's like names and phone numbers and addresses.
Not even necessarily. Not even necessarily. They might come to him and say, the fact that we run a program where we talk to companies is a national security endeavor you cannot expose.
Yeah, they can define national security extremely broadly to their own benefit, and they actually don't have to justify it to you. I mean, this is what you see a lot of, like, government intervention. It's like subpoena, or you're under investigation, or you have to do this thing, and we never really have to explain to you why. And actually, it's very difficult for you to resist or fight us. I mean, Elon Musk is sort of a different case because he is so wealthy, but for most people and most organizations, you can't battle the federal government indefinitely because they can just spend taxpayers' money until they decide not to, which is...
Yeah, I think it's smart for him to have an ace in the hole of some of the backdoor NSA stuff that they obviously pull with these social media companies. So, he's got multiple reasons for not just dumping that in the Twitter files. So,
you think that him holding the info actually helps?
Yeah, that's what a smart person would do.
Well, it depends.
Hold info.
It depends on the info.
The worst info. Yeah, it depends on the nature, of course.
I mean, and that's always the big challenge. I think, I'd like to see all of it be released immediately and let 4chan go at it and just rip through everything, decentralized network of investigation. But I don't know what's in it. There could be stuff in there that, I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Right.
Well, Musk has been hammered with, lawsuits and, of course, the Delaware judgment that hopefully, it worked out for him in the end. But, withholding, the golden parachute or the bonus that he got from his shareholders, that was just the tip of the iceberg, I think. And, he's being hammered left and right. He was complaining about it today, the SEC going after him. And, so I think he has got a lot of interest to back Trump, to see a fair bureaucracy that isn't so weaponized and politicized to protect free speech and political dissidents. I don't think he's a hardcore right-wing guy at all. I think, deep down, he just wants to see balance, a good business environment, and wants to achieve his dreams in the tech sector. So I think this is just all a calculation. It doesn't make him a MAGA guy at all. It's just a smart political bet. The headwinds are going his way. So
I would never have classified him as like a capital R Republican or traditional conservative or anything like that. He may have some values that fall in line, but for the most part, his worldview is different than maybe the run-of-the-mill evangelical voter in the U.S.
Well, certainly, because the run-of-the-mill evangelical voter sticks around and raises their own kids. One thing that is...
You don't like his many families? He's up to at least 12, and I suspect more.
His many families, some of them don't seem to like him because they don't want to communicate with him. Look, I enjoy Musk's antics on Twitter. One of the things I think might also be pushing him towards Trump is looking at the international legislative environment. ADF International, which is a sort of Christian law firm, they're currently pursuing 2 cases involving Twitter. One on behalf of Billboard Chris, who's been on this show before. The Australian High Commission, I think it is going after him because he criticised a trans activist who's on their transgender healthcare board by accurately using the pronouns for the biological sex of the person, and this was on Twitter. And then also Michael Schellenberger, involved in the Twitter files, one of the journalists releasing it, is being hounded by the Brazilian High Court. They're trying to criminally prosecute him to ensure that he never sets foot in the country again. And I think Musk is looking at these people that he either follows or in his inner circle and are thinking, if I can at least make one strong foothold for legal free speech in the Western world, and I make it the nominal leader of the free world, I might as well throw everything I can at it to help.
Yeah. He'll also be like, he's pretty observant and aware and flexible, and he'll be like, well, I can't vote for Biden. And the Democrats told me that he's the candidate, so I'm going full against him. Sorry. It's not that I love Trump. I'm not letting that guy become president. Pulling a fast one on him.
Yeah,
That's what they did in 2020.
The Biden administration has demonized him to a certain extent, and a lot of progressive activists. I mean, as soon as he was like, hey, I think free speech is a good thing, they were like, you're the worst person we've ever met, even though, again, I'm not sure he is that divided with them on every policy out there. Not that I have any insider knowledge, but there is a level of he did things that made the wrong people happy, and so therefore, the other side of the aisle is pretty irritated with him. I don't know that he could win them back over, and even does he even want to at this point?
Yeah, I think the stunt that pulled in Delaware made him.
What was it?
Flip it on a little bit strong. Well, he was owed the exact number was it $58 billion. He was owed like tens of billions of dollars. Yeah,
his
shareholder agreement that they voted for and
the judge nullified it.
Yes.
Whoa, when?
Yeah.
But then the shareholders again convened and green lighted.
And I was one of them. I voted to reinstate his pay package. It's absolutely insane. When I saw Tesla was at like 300 a while ago, Elon Musk buys Twitter. He starts getting political. The price goes down. I'm thinking Tesla shares are undervalued. If people are really selling because they don't like what he's saying, that's an absurdity. So I bought, and it went way up. And then when I saw that some dude had sued saying Elon doesn't deserve to get paid the billions for running what is the name brand electric car company, especially when you have all these Democrats screaming we should have EVs and they hate the guy, which makes no sense. I was pissed. His pay gets slashed by a judge who has nothing to do with the company, even though they agreed. So this is the most infuriating thing about the whole ordeal. This one guy with a small amount of shares decided for the entirety of the company and all shareholders that the CEO shouldn't get paid. That's psychotic. And I'm thinking, you take away the incentive from the guy leading the charge and running the show, you're going to lose money. Well, they moved to Texas. They're changing it. He's getting his pay, and I'm glad to see it.
Oh, that's what sparked the move. I see. Now I'm understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But, to be fair, these companies, they register in Delaware. They incorporate in Delaware because
tax.
And it's also connected to the Bidens.
Yeah.
The judges circuit there connected to the Bidens. They have influence through different channels.
They also have this. They have this trust thing they do. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but if the trust makes money, it doesn't get taxed. So basically, rich people will put their assets in some kind of new trust that Delaware has. They pay a fee where it's like $5,000 a year to maintain the trust. And then when the trust makes investments and those investments accrue profit, there's no one to tax. It's held by an entity with no individual. So, right.
All right.
Very, very, everybody's trying to find a way to play the game. You know what I mean?
And then New York has spoiled its own, backyard as well. For, you don't want to do business there with the way the Manhattan trial went down. I was incorporated in New York, and
Really?
It's been a nightmare.
No, it's a terrible.
I
terrible
pulled
place to
out and
incorporate it.
just dissolved it and reincorporated in Texas, and it's probably the smartest.
Why
move I did.
Texas?
Texas is fairly protective of free speech in the media. It's kind of a hassle for torts and certain types of litigation. Not like New York. New York is it's New York.
You mentioned that Delaware stuff was connected to the Bidens, and I know he was a senator.
Yeah,
from Delaware.
Hunter has said something that he knew judges before. That's if you go through and search through like Marco Polo and read the emails and stuff. And like Hunter's like, well, I know the judges in Delaware. It's like okay.
And that's where they're from. Is that Biden's home?
Oh, yeah.
Delaware senator. Is that what it was for a long time?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's probably
Well,
super tight.
they're super connected. Bo, the late son of Joe Biden, was the attorney general from Delaware, if I'm not remembering. And at one point, he was going to run for governor. Then he got really sick, and they didn't talk about it, and they wouldn't confirm if he was still running. Because he was also someone who had a health crisis because he had brain cancer that they kind of kept quiet for a long time. They didn't reveal how serious it was until, extremely late in the game. That one I can almost understand. He had very young children and things like that. But it is definitely a place that the Bidens have deep root and connections.
Right. There's nepotism there, and
I had that dream I was telling you about it before the show where I hung out with Obama. I was like at the White House, and I was like, hey man, and he was like, yeah, let's get some lunch. So we were sitting, I was like, so what happened to you? You were so idealistic, you got in, and then you became deep state. What happened? He's like, oh, it's Joe and Jim. And I was like, I didn't know who I knew Joe. I was like, oh, that's Joe Biden. And the other word, James, he said. I was like, I don't know who it was. And it sounded in memory like you said James. I was like, oh, that's Joe's brother, James Biden. So I was like, did he get in and Joe just introduced him to all the dudes, all the guys that know what's what?
I think
you don't think it was
the other way
Biden?
around.
It just
I think you got the horse before the cart.
Let me. I just love the scenario where Ian had a dream.
So it must be real. That's why I never
And that-
mentioned it before. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there may
It
be
came to me in a
something
dream.
too.
And so
he's saying,
I'd just like to point out.
And then Michelle walked in, and I thought it was Kamala. It was a crazy dream.
So,
were you eating
so
at
I'd like to
this
point this out. Back in Illinois, when Barack Obama won the Senate seat, one of the first things he's asked, it's his first foray into national politics. He has just won. He's not served a day in office, and they said, will you run for president? I was like, huh? Why? Why would you ask him that? He's just some guy who just got elected first. And then he did. He didn't even finish his first term. As far as I understand, right? What did he get elected in 2004?
Yeah.
To the Senate?
Yeah.
And then decided to run for president.
Right.
And then was just absent.
like 2 years later. Yeah.
Right. And then Blagojevich was accused of trying to sell his Senate seat. But he says he was, that's what everyone did. And I can't remember exactly
Yeah,
how
they
he
had
felt.
And who
audio
helped
come out about it,
Blagojevich
yeah.
out, though? Trump.
Yeah, and I saw Blagojevich
Oh yeah,
at
that's
Mar-a-Lago.
right. Pardon him.
He was down there.
Right.
Hanging out with Trump.
No, Obama was made. He was a Chicago politics operator, knew Bill Ayers and Bernadette Dohrn, and ran with the Democratic Socialists of America. But then he did like a good Alinskyite and put on a suit, put on a tie. He looked good. He could speak well. He was a nice contrast with George Bush. Which I think almost everyone was sick of by the time of that administration was over. And so I think that it goes back to what your point, like who's really running the show? Well, whoever made Barack Obama is who's running the show. And it's not Barack Obama because he didn't become president by himself. He was anointed the Messiah and made and thrust in front of the media. So that's when we talk about the media connections with Obama, with George Clooney and all of this stuff, this nexus, this this network that they have, this machine is how we can sort of glean, Obama's backdoor influence.
So it used to be the Clintons until Obama appeared, and they're like, "Oh, he's better than Bill's too old now, so he's a better one." And Hillary was like, "Yo, but it's the Clintons." And
Bill was
like,
a great retail politician, to be fair. So I think Bill was, I believe, is much more self-made than Barack was. Bill was a very skilled political operator, and so is Hillary, obviously. She's the Lady Macbeth, behind the scenes with Bill, ruthless operator. But, Bill, I believe, was a lot more self-made. He from his Arkansas governor days, and he worked his way up through the Democratic machine with Hillary's help. I think Barack kind of came out of nowhere. It just doesn't happen. This kind of like little, this Hollywood story around Barack Obama, that doesn't just happen in Democrat machine politics. So,
and now it's superdelegates who make the final say. Like they've got all.
They change the rules.
It's the dream right now for Democrats to get rid of the primary process and have the political elites just choose who they want to be the president.
Yeah, it's very annoying to them that they have to listen to their own constituents. It's frustrating almost.
Well, they lie to their constituents routinely, and so when we see interviews with black voters now, and they said that they're voting for Trump, they're bewildered.
Understand this: if Democrats are engaging in less than, let's just call them untoward voter practices, and the Republicans can truly not win, and the Democrat primary is chosen in secret by political elites, we are North Korea. Let's jump to the story from the Post-Millennial. Daily Show shocked when focus group of black voters revealed they're voting for Trump. Biden, you done dropped the ball, brother, said one female voter. But I believe it was like split, right?
Yeah, it was half and half. There were 6 on the panel, and 3 said that they were voting for Trump. And it was actually very amusing how they said that they were voting for Trump. It's like they didn't even want to admit it. It was actually
2 women.
Stunning. Yeah,
it was 3 and 2 women who predicted the black community would shift their support to Trump this election cycle on claims the Democratic Party and President Biden had left them behind. Johnson chuckled and said, "I didn't see that coming." They use the issues of African-American community as a soapbox to stand on and make promises just to get us to come out and vote. And then once we vote and everyone's in place, it's like, well, what happened? Said one of the female Trump supporters defending her vote. It's true. Didn't Trump say, what have you got to lose? He was like, vote for me. What do you got to lose? I think at a certain point, Democrats think they can make promises, disappear for 4 years, come back 4 years later and say promises again. And eventually people are going to be like, you're lying to me.
Dude, and the way Biden dangled Kamala Harris's skin color in front of people and as like a bait to get them to vote was like disgusting to any human with eyeballs and a brain. Is like, yo, you can't like racist me by trying to like use my it's so gross and disgusting to do that. And I think these people are obviously aware of that. Like,
I don't know in how many numbers. I think you're going to get a more sizable swing than you did last election. There are many jokes about Trump having a mugshot and therefore being able to be identifiable to black men who have a narrative about being persecuted by the prison industrial complex. Perhaps that is a factor. The fact is, very few people generally are plugged into shows like this. I'm glad more people are, but lots of people are low information, clientele class voters who are dependent on handouts, and the Democrats are promising to buy them off, then they will still vote for the Democrats. The thing that might stop that is, as you've seen in Chicago and in New York and all these so-called sanctuary states, is a mass influx of illegals who are now competing with them in their local area for housing and food stamps. And you're getting a lot of people just from the black community, the local black community, going to the local representatives and going, hang on, this money's for us. This is our money. So if the clientele classes start fighting, there might be a swing. I just don't think it's going to be in a sizable enough number to give Trump a majority of the black vote.
I don't think he'll get a majority, but I do think the recognition that it's all lip service from the Democrats is extremely important and actually helps down ticket. I think that this is going to potentially pave the way for Republicans in districts that they are usually written off as like, oh, this is a Democratic stronghold, I'll never win this, to actually make a more convincing argument. Because I think part of the issue is Democrats do say, oh, no, we're with you, and you've gone through a lot, and they say whatever they need to say, and then they do forget the voters, especially voters of color who have voted for them. But Republicans in that sense have also done a disservice because they say, oh, well, you're a minority voter, so you're going to vote for Democrats. They sort of also forget that they could potentially be more creative in their messaging.
Yeah, I think one of the ladies on the panel speaks to what you're saying. I think she had a very powerful, line about every 4 years they pull out a soapbox and they stand on the soapbox and then they speak to the black community about their problems. And then when the election's over, they put the soapbox away, forget about their promises. I think that's that kind of inroads that's sort of like planting the seeds of being open-minded about alternatives to the Democratic Party is very powerful. And, I think, Trump could get close to 20%, and that may be all he needs in some of these swing states.
But I agree, and it's not that big. You always get this narrative where it's like, oh, he's going to get it this time. He's going to get it big. Nah, maybe he improves a point or two or something like that. But the analysis is that if he does break 20%, Democrats can't possibly win. That's what they claim. I don't know if it's true, but Wall Street Journal reported that.
In certain swing states, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Milwaukee. I mean, he may be within the margin of shenanigans in Milwaukee.
That's a good way to put it.
In Detroit, yeah. Well, I'm being careful. Detroit, Michigan, and Detroit and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I think that you've seen some of the election law changes, and they definitely laying the groundwork to pull a 2020 again. So
it's more than that too. And Republicans have no idea what's going on. This is what the right always does. They always react. They only respond. The Democrats will do things, and the Republicans are just desperately trying to chase after them.
I've been trying to demand the open source of the voting machines, the code, because if you don't know what those things are flipping votes, it's just unusable.
Have you tried shaking your fist into the air?
I've tried many times.
Because I don't know.
Open the source code.
What about a strongly worded
I've
letter?
been advocating that for a long time, Ian. I really like that.
But I say that because there's not a single act of Congress that will do anything about it. Perhaps at the state levels, you can vote in your local elections. So your state reps and your state senators can actually bring about these changes. I recommend getting in touch with them. But you need a mass movement. That populist energy you know what I'll tell you the deep state loves? They love that the populist uprising is for the presidency. Because they can control everything else so long as the people ignore their local elections.
Yeah, and Occupy Wall Street. That was like, they didn't like that one.
So I think a good example is, we had the Georgia Elections Board this week, had a number of election security experts go to them and persuaded them to look into 2020 again. But more importantly, they voted for a hand count at the precinct level that had to match the total ballots cast in the voting machines. This is important because the voting machines, the type that they use in Georgia, they draw from ballot images, and they had, since essentially 17,000 and some odd missing ballot images. So in other words, you cannot verify those votes. And so Biden won by what we're told, like 12,000 votes or whatever. You cannot prove it. You cannot verify it. I mean, yes, it's been certified, but it's not there where you have the evidence of what actually took place. So I think that's a good start. It doesn't mean that going to what you said, that you can't, adjust the votes within that, because the tabulators can be hacked. They proved this in front of the Georgia State Supreme Court. A number of experts have gone and proven that, and it's not even that difficult. I mean, you can watch videos of people doing it. They take the machine, they put it on the floor, and this is how you hack this. And, they go into the back, and they just disassemble it, and it demystifies the problems with it. So I do think that it's a good step in the right direction, but we need a lot more of it. And Republican Party, we're told, with the new RNC regime that they put in place, that they were going to be all about election integrity. Well, I see very little of it in reality. That's going to be serious enough to stop the ballot chicanery.
Do you think Republicans are ever intimidated to talk about election integrity because the response from the left is always like, oh, so you're going to question the results of the election?
Lawfare.
Mm-hmm.
It's lawfare. We see Smartmatic's lawsuit. It's still ongoing against Fox News. Fox News was capitulated and cut it with Dominion, and I think that spooked a lot of people. They dragged people in front of show trials. Like with this, as part of that racketeering case, there were like 3 of the defendants were brought in because they did an unauthorized, supposedly. I say supposedly because there's withholding evidence potentially in that case, and there's no the case wasn't tossed or anything. But essentially they had an unauthorized search of the equipment, and so you had Jenna Ellis in tears, and you had all of this stuff going on, and that's what's happening. They are doing Soviet-style political show trials and lawfare to shut people up, and that tells me where there's smoke, there's fire.
Connor, do you feel the same type of pressure to have some sort of integrity process in UK elections, or do you feel like this is uniquely American problem?
We don't have mass mail-in ballots because when we did, there was a massive amount of fraud. In the UK, I'm not, of course, suggesting that anything would happen in the US. That would be terrible. No, we've essentially prevented mass mail-in ballots. You have to specifically request one by a certain window, and even then there are a small proportion of the votes. I don't think we have voting machines. I think we have hand counting, and I think
so. You don't have to deal with this code issue.
No, I don't think that's the same issue as well. We also, as far as I know, we don't have primary processes either, so we don't even have the problem of superdelegates like secretly signing things away as they're trying to circumvent that, even though we did have problems selecting a leader with the Conservative Party. That's a whole other issue. There's not really a conversation about election integrity in the UK. It's more so, are people actually doing the things that they are given an electoral mandate to do? And that is the answer that is given a justifiable no.
But explain how the prime minister is elected. How do they come to be in power?
So the party and the members are meant to appoint a leader. So I'm familiar with the Conservative Party. If they don't coup the leader out, what happens is there is a leadership contest, maybe about 5 candidates. They do debates. They do local hustings events where they'll get all the members in the room and they'll give speeches.
But just to clarify, the people do not vote for a prime minister.
Not directly, no. There's no federal election for a prime minister. You vote for a party, and the prime minister has a constituency as well. So it's almost like he's running in a Senate seat.
And so there is a bit of a difference, but how it would work now is that the Democratic Party would just vote amongst themselves, much like you vote for a party and then they choose who the prime minister is going to be.
Yeah, it's very similar to what happened with the electorate voted for Boris Johnson. He got removed. Then the members voted for Liz Truss. She got removed. So they just installed Rishi Sunak. So look to the UK as a precursor, I suppose.
You said the party and then the members. What is the difference of the party and the members?
So the party is comprised of the MPs, so the elected representatives, and there's like a backroom committee for the Conservative Party called the 1922 Committee that's made up of executive MPs, and they're elected by other MPs, and they have the power to call votes of no confidence in the Prime Minister, for example. And then the members are the ones that are registered, they're paying. So like if you register to vote as a Democrat or Republican, you get to vote in the final 2 leadership election, who will then be elected as either the leader of the party or eventually the prime minister if the party wins power.
Well, as shocking as the Labour Party's victory was in the recent elections, I look at the French election as a version of the type of rigging you get in countries where there is some election integrity there, because in France only the expats send the mail-in ballots in, who are like the expats who are abroad. And I think with the French elections, the way that they stymied National Rally, Marine Le Pen, that's where you see the globalists in the corporatists, the blob, as Mike Benz calls them.
That's a Michael Gove phrase, actually, the blob.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. But you see the globalists behind the scenes, the power brokers, where you have this. They call it the center right, is from a French perspective, and the hard left, except for maybe, like the communists and sort of the very left wing fringe, sort of make a deal with the devil and just to block National Rally. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But France is going to be in turmoil, and I think Macron is somewhat wounded, at least for the near term of like the next year. So I think it's interesting, like the European politics, you do have some election integrity, but you do see your sort of backroom deals and, conniving just carried out in a different way.
Well, the UK and the French election is very different because the French system is a proportional representation system which inclines various small marginal parties to make coalitions to block the most popular party. Also in the UK, the Labour election wasn't surprising. It was actually cheered on by right-wingers. And the reason for that is the Conservative Party, having betrayed us, is standing in the way of an actual right-wing party. And so they just thought, well, we'll rip the Band-Aid off, get rid of the Conservatives, and then get rid of Labour in 5 years. But I think you're right in that Macron's gamble will not have paid off, because he's blocked Jordan Bardella from being Prime Minister right now. But in 2027, when he's running for president, I think Le Pen sweeps it, because he hasn't given National Rally essentially a mandate to govern and be incapable of solving the problems which France is facing. And so all the onus is on him and all of the left-wing parties.
So they could run in opposition, build up momentum for the president.
To the entire establishment.
Yeah, that's actually a good place for them to be in some ways. So
Not good for the French, but
right.
If they gave Le Pen's party, what's it called, National Rally? If they gave them the opportunity to, how did you phrase it, to actually fix things in the country?
to not be able to fix things. So Macron's gamble was essentially the 28-year-old Jordan Bardella, who's joined the party since he was 16 and has rocketed to the top. He's now number 2 in Le Pen's party. Would have become prime minister if National Rally would have won this round of parliamentary elections, but Macron would have stayed president. And so Macron's thinking, I'm deeply unpopular. In 2027, I think he can run again, but it would be very unprecedented to get a third term. He's thinking, I could have this massive insurgent right-wing party get into government, and then I can just sit there and blame them, if they're in the parliament, for not dealing with economic problems, the pension crisis, the immigration crisis, all this sort of stuff, and then say, vote to put me and my party back in power, give me the mandate to govern, to give me stability. The problem now is that National Rally didn't sweep it. And in desperation, he made a pact with the communists, and now all of the left-wing parties are the governing body, and so it looks like all of the left-wing parties are going to be at full, and so Marine Le Pen could win as president in 2027.
Wow.
That's right.
I think there is a lot of short-term thinking like that. Some of the reporting that I heard around National Rally's rise was really just panic and fear-mongering. It reminds me so much of what happens in the U.S. There's sort of a, I'll make a deal here, and we just have to get through this one election. But to what you're speaking to, there's no thought of how the long-term game could play out. I mean, for all that we talk about, there are powers that work, and there are things strings that being pulled. I actually think a lot of progressive causes are deeply emotional, and therefore it clouds their decision-making.
Well, they're also full of stupid people as well.
Yes, lack of intelligence and high emotion, sometimes they go hand in hand.
Like the liberal economic orders lost it, whereas the Chinese are 100 years. They're planning hundreds of years in advance. And is that real, or is that just like a fallacy? Like, is that actually
1,000-year plan?
Have we poisoned our minds with phthalates and endocrine disruptors to the point where even the people that are running the show have no way to see past 5 years from now?
Yeah, we're running on dopamine. That's right.
And they're not like the Chinese eat enough rice and fish that they're like, yo, we're still here. We're still with it.
It's the grandchildren of the liberal economic order, and wealth lasts 3 generations.
Oh, man,
That's it.
I want to say that it's inevitable to fall. It is inevitable to change. They've been talking about the new world order since the 90s. George Bush Sr. mentioned this world order is done. We're transitioning to some new world order. I don't know what it is. Technocracy being run behind the scenes by God knows what. And artificial intelligence at this point. I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, the UK government is currently in the process of outsourcing gov.uk, which is a central body that administers things like passports or student loans or visas or all those sorts of things to AI processors. So they're already incorporating AI into the operations of the UK government.
Yeah, and I think Peter Thiel's moving and shaking, with Palantir, and the AI force that it is, suggests, heavy involvement with these. I mean, like Mark Zuckerberg being directly involved in an election.
Well, let's pull it up. We got this from the Post Millennial. Meta removes restrictions on Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts. Quote, in assessing our responsibility to allow political expression, we believe the American people should be able to hear from the nominees for president on the same basis. Funny. This is just after about literally a day ago, Trump threatens to send Meta's Mark Zuckerbucks to prison if reelected president. Surprise, surprise. I wonder if the reason Mark Zuckerberg built that underground bunker in Hawaii was because, Trump's pretty mad at him and Trump's going to win, huh?
Yeah, Zuckerberg's in control of an explosive product, metaphorically, of course, but with a lot of potential to change a lot of minds in a moment. So I can see why he has a bunker.
I
Doesn't
think
want to
they
be
also,
responsible.
they also know they're losing ad revenue and engagement every time that Trump is on Truth Social, and the only places it's getting reposted are basically 2x via, side accounts. They realize that during election year, they're actually losing money by not having him on. There's no way to lure Trump back onto any of these platforms.
Well,
we need him more than he
when I
does
was
now.
working, I was mainly working with Facebook before Trump's first victory, and it was a powerhouse. I'm telling you, it was the Wild West, and there wasn't a single publisher on the entire internet that was as powerful as we were, and some other conservative, Daily Wire, and I think some other, even the Blaze was a thing then, and we were killing them. Like, we were killing them when it comes to owning the narrative, like on social media. And Facebook was kind of where the game was at that point. Now, where's the game at? It's X, and with younger, maybe TikTok. And I think Facebook has lost a lot of relevance, and so I think this is what you're saying, Anna. Like, they probably miss the engagement, they miss the action, they miss getting our data without our permission.
You're probably right on the TikTok front, and that's something that's factored into European politics as well. It's that Nigel Farage was the most popular politician on TikTok. In the UK, Baudelaire in France has been a runaway success. Apparently, he used to run an anonymous Twitter account posting spicy things. He used to stream Modern Warfare 2. The social media ground game is being played by right-wing politicians and dissident media figures a hell of a lot better. And this could be Zuckerberg trying to avoid jail time. I doubt that. Or this could be Zuckerberg reflecting, hey, I played nice with the intelligence services for years, suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop, or helping out with COVID misinformation efforts with The Atlantic. And now Elon's got a ton of fans. He's pretty profitable, and he's challenging me to a fight. Everyone loves him. Why don't I just pick the winning side?
Yeah. At what point do you just go where the dollars and eyes are? I mean, that really behooves him. To your point, Trump goes to one UFC fight, gets on TikTok, and within 24 hours has several million people following him. I mean, especially this year, but generally Trump is a pretty influential person. It is actually a bad business decision to continue to put him off. And I think the idea that this was like a moral decision and he had done something wrong is obviously, we all know a lie. We know it was politically biased, and they're not going to stick to this fake ethics they seem to be claiming. So they're going to go with the bottom line, which is that they need Trump. They need Trump, and they need the engagement that he brings.
I'd love for Zuck to do this just out of the goodwill. It does suck that Trump came at him and was like, I'm going to throw this guy in jail if he doesn't. But like, did you see Zuckerberg?
He didn't say it like that,
Okay.
but he kind of did.
Did you see Zuckerberg surfing with the drink on the 4th of July?
Yeah, he was trying to be I think it's so
interesting.
weird.
He's hilarious.
But he got roasted for that other picture where he's like, and I'm very pale, but he looks like a ghoul when he's on the surfboard. I mean, you and me both. We had never seen sun. Neither had Mark Zuckerberg. People really mocked him for that. It didn't come across as cool at all.
His new facial hair is getting cool. I think he did heavy dose of psychedelics. I can't tell, but he's like a new man. Like, he's like all open source now, freeing Donald Trump on his platform. Like, this is a good sign.
But does that make you not trust him?
I don't trust
For years, he
anyone in
was saying
control of
one
these
thing.
things.
Yeah.
No humans. I don't trust them. We should not be in charge of who gets to say what or what gets seen and what doesn't. It's not righteous. I mean, I guess I understand censorship and you want ethical censorship. Otherwise, you're going to have child porn on every network. So I get that, but I don't trust the people. I just understand the necessary evil of having humans run it right now until we get a machine that can do it better, if we can.
I trust machines, though.
What got me, Connor, you were saying is that on these TikTok, you got like Nigel Farage and Jean Bardella. Is that how you say his name?
Jordan Bardella. Yeah.
Bardello, Jordan Bardello, something like that. And TikTok's a Chinese company, so they're pushing these right-wing characters to try and disrupt the liberal economic order and create a sense of like maybe disparate nationalism.
I don't know how much it is that the algorithm themselves are pushing them, or they're just cutting through the noise because they've got a lot of savvy actors. So I like to compare two groups of Gen Z who know how to use social media, right? The ones that just follow algorithmic trends presented in front of them are like the children of the algorithm. They've had digital babysitters. They are plugged into what my friend Mary Harrington calls the omnicores. They derive all of their political opinions from their social media feeds, even if it doesn't make sense. This is why Greta Thunberg is marching for Palestine. None of these things are coherent, but they are collaborated in front of them by an outside force. And then you have sort of reactionary types that grew up on the internet, know how to use the technology ergonomically, and are using it for their own ends and are cutting against social trends. But because they're just frankly smarter and funnier and more innovative than the rest of them, they're able to push the politicians they like to the top despite censorship attempts and the like. So I think that's the reason. I don't think it's that China's actively pushing Trump or Bardella or Farage. I don't know if that's even on their radar, frankly, because Nigel Farage was only running for the position of MP in one small seaside town in Clacton. I just think their team is much smarter than who's that Democrat moron that's a paid shill that's about 18. Harry something.
Harry Sisson.
Oh, he's 21.
Yeah. Right. Well, there we go. I clearly underestimated him. I don't see innovative and intelligence behind that man's eyes. I see astroturfed, and that he can't get his own audience organically if you left him to his own devices.
Yeah, when he says how great Biden is, I'm like, I'm out. I tune
Yeah,
out.
he's like, haha, Joe Biden challenged Trump to a round of golf. Let's go. And then Trump's like, let's golf. And he's like, oh, that's so dumb. Why would you play golf, Joe Biden? Then Joe Biden issues a statement saying, I won't do it. And he's like, haha, he got you.
I mean, and is there any way to verify Harry Sisson's following demographics, right? I feel like he's kind of just courting all of the left boomers, by being like, look, I'm young and I like Biden. They're like, wow, this kid's so cool. Like, he's the actual influencer among young people. You see this on the right too, of course. I mean, this is kind of how influencer culture has gone on. But I think you're right. There's a level of so Axios had this article where he talked about the viral battlefield, and basically that there's a Silicon Valley pack that's formed to investigate why the algorithm works for conservatives or right-wing people better than it does for the left, which is hilarious because we all know all of Silicon Valley is biased to the left.
So
it's
we
a
can
large
articulate our points, in a comical and blunt and direct and honest fashion that resonates with popularly. It's not like some earnest, contrived, pleading where you have to. I mean, the left can't meme. First of all, they have no sense of humor. They're perpetually outraged, and I think like your average user, like your boomer user on Facebook, for example, or what have you, does not gravitate towards anger. They don't gravitate towards sort of this trenchant sort of like direct in your face thing. What you got to do is you get them to see what they entertainment or Hollywood figures, or I feel like the right was much more creative in the ways that they got around the gatekeepers in these social media companies, and we tricked them so many times, just trying to get our message out sincerely, but we were just too good, and so they had to drop the hammer.
It is interesting that the obstacle would actually encourage creativity in a way.
Yes, that's right. And every time they change it, me and some other guys, Benny Johnson, and some other people I work with, we would always be, we'd have our little strategy session. Well, this is what the algorithm's doing now. We dig into the data, pull out what we need, and we're going to try this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And within it was only a few days after a new algorithm dropped, we got the secret sauce.
Yeah.
You're like the Mr. Beast of politics.
We did something like that.
I see those when I think of two young, dichotomous young men. I think of Harry Sisson and Nick Fuentes, the hard right and the hard left. I don't even like making examples of people, but like Harry just was like like a goofball, whereas Nick is actually saying intellectual things, whether you agree with them or not. And so it's easy. I think it's more realistic to follow the intellect, no matter where it's coming from.
That's a great point,
Harry's
Ian.
a clown.
That's a great point, Ian, because what I found, when I was a chief editor, with IJR and everything, that what worked really well is we were trying to be reasonable. And I actually, like, a lot of the hard right didn't like the website that I did because we were just too reasonable, and eventually we would break leftists. They'd be like, I really want to hate your content, but you guys are just so dang reasonable. You provide evidence, you talk in a very approachable way. You're just explaining things. You kind of leave your point and let people make up their minds at the end of it. I don't see the left doing that at all. They just virtual signal. It's kind of like at the activist rallies. They just chant the same things in unison. I mean, there's nothing intellectual about that. The left stopped making arguments decades ago. They don't make any arguments. They're not about persuasion at all. They're about power and about deceit.
It's kind of like locking arms when people will lock arms, but they're locking minds. And they're like, we will not divert from our thought patterns. You cannot break through this thought pattern kind of mentality.
I find that stuff chilling.
I got to say about Harry Sisson, because Harry, I don't know you, and I'm sure you're a legit dude in reality. I'd love to hang out with you and have you on the show at some point.
That is unfair.
No thanks.
I don't want to widen the gap unnecessarily.
The dude just says whatever Biden says. Like, Biden could fart. He'd be like, yeah, go Biden.
And is he getting paid? Like,
So there's
won't
some-
admit it.
There's reports that he gets paid from like a consulting firm, and then the general explanation is that he'll play a semantic game where he goes, "I do not get paid for my posts."
Right.
And then it's like, he's paid as an influencer, but not per post. So it's, but I don't know for sure exactly what his arrangement is.
because for a young guy to get hard about Biden makes no sense.
That's why they need to hire people.
Well, people were intense
guy's
about
faded.
Obama, right? I think a lot of young, precocious people get really into politics early on because there is an energy and excitement about it. And, maybe they have grown up in Democratic families or conservative families where it's like, we're really invested in this and there's sort of a reward for it. But I think in a lot of cases in the influencer age, it's about getting eyes on you. And I think to your point, there is an abandonment of the need to persuade people. They're not two different ideas trying to win people over. I think conservatives tend to try to appeal to whatever, or how do we reposition or rephrase this argument so that this group of people is interested in it. With the left, it's really comply or get out.
Well, I think when you go to the roots of like modern leftism, like critical theory and identity politics, what you think reason will necessarily break down as a natural course of their own ideology. So they're breaking down reason in a way that you get with these intersectionality, you get all these contradictions, the cognitive dissonance is off the charts with these people. And so when you try to make a reasonable or rational argument with them, it doesn't cut through all of these layers of dogma that they have, like walls, to stop you from making your reasonable point. Basic logic breaks down with their world.
This is, I think, a generational divide. Okay. There is no reason on TikTok. It's all vibes. It's all politics by vibe. No, it is. This is the only word that you can do for it. It's aesthetic. It's thumos, it's energy, right? And okay, contrast Joe Biden, who's dying in front of us, with Donald Trump, who looks like he's having fun, or Jordan Bardella, or Nigel Farage. Like, which of these interchangeable suits who can't go off script is compelling to a young man who wants someone to look up to and someone to have a laugh with? None of them. So the right-wing politicians just actually are now better at vibes and aesthetics. They're not just sitting down and having a great debate. Like, I don't think the Trump-Biden debate really influenced any Zoomers. I think memes about Trump influenced Zoomers.
Yeah. And again, that was this term viral battlefield. I mean, it's the clips and the post-debate internet warfare that is really influencing young voters who didn't watch it live. They just checked in on it later.
So I think the contradiction, just to unwind really quick, what I was talking about is packaging versus content. So the packaging is exactly what you're talking about. It's very emotive, it's spontaneous, it's in the moment, it's energy, it's interaction effects. But when you get people to grab that, then you unwind it, like you air the wine of, you just kind of take it in and, you're trying to, you get your narrative and you try to lead people through it. So you're kind of, some people might call it confirmation bias, but you're kind of, giving them the reasons that they are justified in feeling the way that they feel and believing the way that they believe.
Are you
So
saying
I
it's
think
like
those two go
emotions
together.
first and then justification
Yes,
after?
it's emotions first, followed by reason.
I think that's interesting, given the years, at least in the U.S. I'm sure we can have a European equivalent over there of Trump is bad. Trump is bad, and no matter what he does, he's bad, and he's too orange, and he's very loud and mean to ladies, and I don't even know what else. But if you were, let's say, 12 when he was first elected, and so you were younger than that when he was campaigning. You're 16 by the time he's up for re-election, so you're not quite old enough to vote at this point. This election cycle would be your first time voting after years and years of hearing, well, no matter what, we have to defeat Trump. And if that's the instinct that you have, even though you can't explain it, you might say, well, I'm never voting for Trump, and then look for the explanation as to why later. You're sort of programmed for this bias against certain politicians.
Well, I kind of like that exercise in trying to see things from a younger generation's point of view, because when you're talking about just optics, Trump is the outlaw. He's the outsider. He's brash and maybe a BS artist, and maybe everybody hates him, but he's got that dragon energy, like Kanye called it. He's kind of got that brash bravado, and then you've got this limp noodle, Joe Biden, on the other side. You can't really get behind that for aesthetics reasons, like what you're saying. Like they're very, the left is very emotional. That's why, Barack Obama was such a powerhouse. They were attracted, people were attracted to him emotionally, once he got out into the forefront of politics.
You do see polling like this where, there's one from Pew Research this week where it said, at least 23%, or only 23% of voters said that Biden could be described as sharp-minded. But they'll say Trump is mean and he's too loud or whatever else, but they also will say that he's strong and he looks, he postures well. So it's like they used to say, oh, you want a politician you could get a beer with. Well, the left doesn't want to get a beer with Trump, but most voters will admit that in terms of strength, he is the better choice.
And this is what we saw 2016, 2020. It's the idea of being on the playground and there's a bully, and you'd rather the bully be working for you than the kids you don't like. Trump can walk around and hey, look, if that guy's standing in front of me, if I send him to Russia, to North Korea to negotiate, he's going to push those people around. Joe Biden's going to get pushed around. So why vote for Joe Biden?
I heard this MSNBC contributor today, again, criticizing Trump and Viktor Orban and their ties or their ability to communicate with Vladimir Putin. And they were criticizing Trump for saying, different world leaders that are unpopular are strong, like that Putin has been strong, or that, the president of China has projected strength or whatever. And they're like, he has such a juvenile understanding of what strength is. And I kept thinking, what do you mean? And I was just waiting for the word toxic masculinity to come out. I mean, there are all these things that we sort of subconsciously look for in world leaders that also a lot of progressive causes reject on the base. They think that they're so bad for society. And so I think it actually makes it very difficult for certain voters and certain political pundits to be able to judge what is actually attractive to someone when looking for a leader of the free world.
So I think it does go back to what we were talking about earlier, where the Democrat machine, they have these, figureheads, to use a polite term, easily controllable people that they put out in front of it. How do you have a strong, charismatic authority figure that is ahead of a machine? It kind of does not go hand in hand. And so, when Trump upsets is able to prey on a weak Republican establishment and to run against them, he called, Little Hands Marco and, Lion Ted and all of this. And he just goes right at the Republican establishment, senses their weakness, rises to the front, has this charismatic authority. He's the reflection of a weak party. He can be the strong man at a weak party. I don't think it necessarily works the other way around, And so I think, when you see even Marine Le Pen, in France, she rises in prominence as a figure. The left freaks out. The machine starts doing things. So they open up a campaign investigation against her, drops 2 days after the election. It's really, from the previous election, they open up. So they were sitting on that. They had in their back pocket. They want to punish her. Just like Brazil went after Bolsonaro, they're going after Trump right now, which for me is clear political prosecution, especially in the light of Biden's now noticeable cognitive decline. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows it. And that's what they did to protect Biden, was to do all these political prosecutions.
What happened with Le Pen? I didn't know they were running a...
Yeah, a few days after they dropped the Paris police authorities, the prosecutor's office dropped a campaign finance investigation. There's a nuance in there. It's billboards that they put up and they misclassified it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Matt and DA's case, where she misclassified some expenses, the legal expenses.
Also, they're investigating some loan she took from some Russian billionaire in 2013, and they're saying she's backed by the Kremlin. I mean, bear in mind, this was before even the invasion of Crimea, so it's totally absurd. Another example to add to this list is in Germany, Alternative for Deutschland, which has risen in the polls since the 2018 vote, where the Greens took a large portion of the German EU Parliament and then did votes for 16. It turns out all the 16-year-olds don't like a bunch of criminal foreigners entering their country and taking all their job opportunities and homes. So lots of them have come out and voted for the migration restrictionist party. And what's ended up happening there is, after they've gotten popular on TikTok, the German government is seeking to ban them under their constitutional provisions, just ban their political opposition. Multiple politicians have been attacked. One of them has been stabbed. Another one, I believe, has been given a prison sentence for citing the German government's own statistics on migrant crime and sexual assault. So they are going hard after the party that basically tells the truth and also captures the imagination of young people.
They're mad. They're using their own data against them.
You said they lowered the voting age in Germany to
16.
Wow.
Yes, and then it massively backfired. They're doing that in the UK, by the way.
Backfired, that you said.
Yes, because 16-year-olds increase the vote share for the right-wing party.
Wow.
Yes, it's also happening in the UK. The Reform Party is the most popular among young men, and it's way more popular than the Conservatives among 16 to 25-year-olds. So it looks like there might be a youth quake. Keir Starmer, current Prime Minister, is thinking about lowering the voting age to 16 and is now shaky about it. He was also going to give the vote to all EU citizens. That is up in the air. And one interesting thing that I forgot to mention about UK elections, we allow foreign citizens to vote. If you're in the Commonwealth and you're in the UK, you're allowed to vote in our elections. So that means the 250,000...
Like a tourist?
Yeah. If you're from the Commonwealth country. So like India or Australia.
If you're
or
from Canada, but you have a residency in UK, you're voting in the UK?
If you're in the UK, yeah.
Yeah.
You can. So if you're a student from India, you can just come over and vote in the UK elections.
Wow.
So that's something that needs to be cleaned up.
Has that been happening for a long time?
That's been happening since the establishment of the Commonwealth, before obviously mass transit and mass migration. So,
So
it's
what-
recent.
what- can you
obviously,
Can you give me a quick, just like a, how did India come to be a Commonwealth nation?
Oh, they were part of the British Empire, and after India claimed independence, and
But I mean, like, how did Britain come to, like, conquer or colonize, or how does it begin? Like, show up with a bunch of boats and guns?
pretty much yes. And then
Were the Indian people happy about that?
for quite a while, actually, they were pretty good with it because we brought a large amount of trade. Obviously, the East India Company was incredibly corrupt, and then there was the Amritsar massacre, where about 1,000 people were shot because they were protesting. I think it was food prices, and some general went rogue, but then he was punished by Winston Churchill. Then, obviously, after Gandhi's protests, the British listened to the concerns of the Indians that were constantly protesting and said, "Okay, we'll withdraw and we'll split this place up." And then immediately after the establishment of Pakistan alongside India, they started fighting again. We're constantly blamed because they just can't get along.
So it seems to me with the UK allowing anyone to vote, there's going to be a lot of people who are not happy with the UK.
No, they're
quite happy
actually-
to go there and disrupt what the UK is doing.
Anytime you bring up mass immigration from other former Commonwealth countries, they say, well, you conquered our country, so it's your turn. And it's like, right, so it's revenge. Thank you for admitting it.
And your government is eager.
Yes, well, it was run by an Indian man who in 2014 wrote a paper for Policy Exchange called The Changing Face of Britain, who said that politicians might want to make note of the different voting demographics that comprises immigration. And it just so happened the Conservative Party was voted for more by Indians. And when the Hindu Prime Minister is installed into office, Indian immigration just shoots up. Can't imagine why.
Was he actually from India, or was he of Indian descent?
He's from Indian descent. His parents are from India, but he also married an Indian billionaire. She is the head of Infosys, and Infosys, I believe, was a company that worked with the Chinese to create the social credit system.
Wicked.
So good times for you guys. It's working
Yes.
out really well. But this isn't commonly talked about. I mean, conservatives talk about this, but I feel like most of the media in the UK doesn't talk about any of it.
Well, the Conservative Party certainly don't talk about it, and the media in the UK certainly don't talk about it. Honestly, Nigel Farage barely touches it. He just calls Rishi Sunak corrupt and out of touch. These issues are just beyond the pale, other than in alternative media.
Yeah, a good emperor wouldn't allow that to happen to his empire. That's why I feel like the emperor is not in control. Obviously.
Could you imagine if in the Hunger Games, the Capitol let citizens from District 12 just come in and vote in the Capitol?
Crazy.
There'd be no Capitol. Heavens.
Yeah, you wonder why London doesn't look like a capital city anymore.
Do you have to be British to become a prime minister? Do you have to be born in the country or in the...
No, you don't have to be born in the country, no. The Conservative Party is about to be led by a woman who is a Nigerian immigrant. So,
Whoa.
yes.
Okay.
Wow.
And she could become prime minister of the country?
She could, yes.
Nigerian woman?
Yes.
Interesting.
I kind of feel like this is the intention of the British Empire from the get-go.
What do you mean?
I mean, you go around taking over all these places or asserting control over them, and
Making them better, yes.
sure, and then inviting them to be a part of the British Empire.
You would never bring them to the capital.
Yes, exactly. We weren't mass importing them. Immigration was always incredibly low until 1997. It was running at either net zero, which is now the current phrase, or net 48,000 on average. And as soon as 1997 happened, it went to net 100,000. And then under the Conservatives, it's been net 700,000.
What, per year?
Yes, 700,000.
What changed?
After Brexit, all of the limitations on free movement within the Schengen zone and the like were lifted. And so the Brexiteers in the Conservative Party didn't want to lower immigration like the voters did. Instead, they just said, we wanted global Britain, so freer movement with countries outside of the European Union, which is why we get 90,000 Chinese and 250,000 Indians and 100,000 Nigerians every year. And so when I'm saying net 700,000, that means added to the population. That means also 600,000 people left. So every year they give 1.2 million permanent stay visas out, plus 2 million visitor visas, plus 50,000 illegal boat crossings. And that's every year in a country, as I said last night, the size of New York State.
7,000 net, meaning that 600,000 people. Say that again.
700,000 net were added to the population through immigration. 600,000 left.
What's the total population?
It's about 70,000 now, but there's some quibbling on those
70,000?
numbers. Yeah. Right. So there's obviously
the total population.
Sorry, 70 million.
Yeah, okay.
My bad. There's some quibbling on those numbers because the food industry have come out and said we're servicing a lot more than that. So
what was the population 30 years ago?
Must have been about.
Let's ask our robot friend.
Yeah, I think 10 million people have been added to the population since 1997, so it must have been about 60 million.
I mean, like the U.S., that means that there are also people there unregistered, so you don't actually have an accurate.
As of 2017, there were, according to Pew Research and the Oxford Migration Observatory, 1.2 million illegals there. This was because Tony Blair abolished exit checks in 1998, so we couldn't verify if anyone had overstayed a visa. And this was before mass illegal immigration across the channel. So there's well over 2 million illegals in the UK right now.
Defies logic. With the war on terrorism, this whole since 2003, this fear, this of the other.
It almost makes you think like these security apparatus is not really interested in security.
Well, they're monitoring
us.
In
something else.
I know for a fact they've been monitoring us because the Home Office gives hundreds of thousands of pounds to left-wing NGOs that compile hate reports or hit pieces on me specifically. And I spoke to someone in the Home Office actually. They have a thing called Prevent, which is meant to be on the watch for terrorism. Now, bear in mind, I think it's 1% of the entire Muslim population in the UK is on a terror watch list. There's 4 million Muslims. There's 40,000 people on a terror watch list for Islamic terrorism. They spend most of the time hunting down the far right. The far right being readers of George Orwell, Douglas Murray, and me. And I was told by a guy in the Home Office on Prevent, he was looking at materials and names like mine and Douglas Murray's were in there. I'm being monitored by my own government.
People that read George Orwell?
Yes, that was and J.R.R. Tolkien.
What?
Yes, as signs of far-right extremism. It was reported in The Spectator. People
You
can go
also
and
go
read
to
it.
Latin Mass because then our government will investigate you.
Yeah, pray the rosary, yes.
Do you have concerns about teachers in schools? Because then you will be investigated as a terrorist as well.
Yes, quite, yeah. It seems like it's all syncing up across our relative nations.
The George Orwell stuff's wild. Like 1984, have you guys, I don't know if you've read 1984. Highly recommend the read. It's like 100 pages long. He wrote Animal Farm. I see Animal Farm leading up to this 1984 situation where they say the final and most important command from the government was to ignore the truth of your eyes and ears. Some quote like that, like just ignore what's right in front of you. And dude, the forever wars across the world, you're just fighting a new enemy. We had ISIS, now we have ISIS-K, now we're fighting the Taliban, now we're fighting the Russians, now we're fighting who God knows what. But there's always some enemy, foreign enemy. And it's like, dude, he gave us a blueprint of what this liberal economic order has been doing, essentially.
Well, I've read Brave New World too, not the script to the new Captain America movie, but that kind of gives you the other half of the picture where we're just we're dopamine freaks, where we're looking for our next high and just going day to day, we're looking for Soma.
And also that trailer sucked.
Yeah, it did.
I'm sorry. And I've been a big fan of the Marvel movies since they started the MCU back in the day, and our cultural decline. They cannot maintain this stuff. Whatever it is they're trying to do with this new Captain America movie is just absolute trash.
Make it gay and lay, like Abraham Lincoln.
But it's worse than that. It's worse than that. The trailer so far was nothing. It was nothing. It's Anthony Mackie walking around, and then it's nothing. And I'm like, I suppose we get to the point of cultural stagnation where they try injecting ideology into it for political reasons, but also because they don't know what else to do. They're like, this is a thing that people are talking about. Now they got nothing to write about.
Well, it's like Hero's Journey meets, neo-Marxist dogma, or like identity politics. But plain language, and you fuse it together, and you just.
But it's not even. The Hero's Journey is abandoned. They're not doing Hero's Journey.
Well, yeah, the new regime of Disney.
Right now,
last couple of years.
But the point I'm trying to make is that we had this period of cultural stagnation where even when they started making these movies, it's just regurgitating old ideas. They've got nothing left. And I think there's something I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but there is a portent of danger in that we are failing to create new cultural ideas. It's stagnated to the point of where it's now a brittle chalk figure disintegrating in the wind. That we used to make movies, we used to make music, we used to make art. And then it got to the point where we started regurgitating music, art, and movies. The same thing over and over and over again.
I just used artificial intelligence, Suno.com, to make a music song.
So I think
to make an amalgam regurgitation of something old.
I agree with what you're saying, Tim. And I feel some of that frustration. And our publishing houses, for example, are extremely woke.
I just had a book cancelled.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, there you go. And so, like, I went to HarperCollins and had a great idea and, pitched a fiction book, and they said it was good, but, it didn't fit the format, so we'll just do it as a graphic novel. But I didn't do that. I said, like, I obviously did something wrong here. So, I started writing fiction, and I talked to, like, Kurt Schlichter and some other people who are independent, publishers, and he's been very successful, just talking about, we have to take advantage of the new media out there to start trying to have some cultural, genesis, this new initiative to unleash our ideas, because right now should be, historically speaking, if you go to ancient Greece when it was declined, and you go to a lot of civilizations when they go through periods of decline, you start seeing intellectuals try to come up with great works and to get them published, but right now, we're in a period where there's a lot of push. We are in the counterculture. So, right now the elites are starting their crackdown on us through, big tech and social media. And, but there's still a window. There's still a twilight window left. And if we don't seize that opportunity to really tell powerful stories and narratives that connect with people, like what we were saying earlier, on the emotional level, and that's how you draw people in. You make them empathize with your plight. You make them connect to you and see the world through your eyes. And then that's how you actually get a broader movement, because politics is downstream from culture, as the late Andrew Breitbart was right to point out. So if we don't really get better at telling stories and seizing on this small window of capitalizing on independent media, even Amazon, I don't know how long this will happen. They have great ways to publish books now independently. And, so our window is closing. So if anybody has great ideas to write stories, get at it.
Oh, yeah. Psychic monkeys from
Get at
space.
it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right,
Especially
exactly.
Well, Connor, what book did you get canceled?
Yeah,
So I'll have to elaborate on it properly at a later date, but I'd been working essentially on a book deal behind the scenes at a very prominent publisher for about a year with a wonderful man who was leading an insurrection inside his publishing house to get conservative books published under a new imprint. And I got right up to the acquisitions meeting where they were going to give me my advance and my deadline date. The women in the publicity department and the finance department were like, great, this is going to make us loads of money. I just did a trigonometry interview on basically its contents and it blew up unexpectedly. And then two things happened. One, sensitivity readers basically threw a fit and walked out of the meeting, but it was fine. We got right up to the deadline. At the last minute, a Hail Mary from an executive who introduced DEI policies into the company said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're dropping it. Done. So I've now got to start from the ground up somewhere else.
Well, so what do you need to make the book happen? What's the book about?
So the book is currently titled Fallen Sons, Why Gen Z Men Were Raised to be Revolutionaries. And I'm looking at the technological, social, and familial forces that dispossessed men from a sense of identity, from politics, from their country, from their families, and why I predict a right-wing religious backlash coming out.
What do you have so far? Do you have like a treatment, or do you have?
I've got the treatment. I've got various articles that I use as samples for the chapters, and I've got sort of draft kit bashed around. So I've been working on it for quite some time, but the problem is,
I suppose the main challenge is that with these publishing deals, you're looking for distribution.
yes,
Right.
because
Otherwise,
I
it's.
won't be able to handle it in the US on my own. I've got a lovely age, and the gutting thing is the guy who I was working with in the publishing house was really nice. Like most of politics and most of this stuff is personal relationships, right? And you've got to really try and find the people who, one, aren't grifters and two, are really sincere. And now I'm gutted to have to start at what could well be a very nice publisher, but with one that I don't already count as a friend.
Well, two things. First of all, what I was alluding to earlier is Amazon has print to demand services for everything, including hardcover books, softcover books. You can do print to demand. So basically, when somebody orders your book, they will print it locally and send it to them. That's a game changer. Second thing is, I know some conservative publishers. We can talk afterwards.
Daily Wire?
Yeah. Well, perhaps, but I know like people in the New York City, like Manhattan conservative publishing scene. There are a few independent, but or smaller house, but they were basically an imprint of. They worked with HarperCollins for a while, but I think they broke off. But yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. I know personally, it's frustrating to deal with these, publishing houses, and That's another way that they keep conservatives down. They keep us out of the counterculture, and that's where we are right now.
Publishing has been really gridlocked for a long time. I mean, I think that was one of the, I'll talk about universities, but I actually think publishing is one of the first sort of victory grounds of progressive influencers. It's that they got in early on the administrative level of publishing houses and really don't allow certain topics to be talked about.
No, they have a stranglehold on it.
Yeah.
Very much so.
What, like Random House? Are these the publishers?
All of these huge publishing houses, they do not, not all of them, but they do not, especially in like fiction, like they really control fiction. Like they do not, they don't let just like conservatives write fiction and just like, oh, here you go. They will sequester them off into like the little politics sections, of certain like conservative publishing houses, like Murdoch's empire, has his publishing outlets, so, they sequester, silo us.
We're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support the work that we do. Oh boy, as soon as we wrap this up, I'm going to drive to the airport and I'm not going to sleep. But it'll be fun. Heading to Milwaukee, and I'm sure the old poker tables at Potawatomi are waiting with my name on it. So it'll be very fun to relax tomorrow and try and catch a nap.
Are you there all week?
We're there all week for the RNC. So we're not actually going to the RNC. We're in the periphery of the RNC because everyone's going to be there. So we're going to be hanging out with people. We're going to have various people on the show, and excited to hang out with Jeremy from the Quartering because, of course, he's in the area. And it's like the most excited I've ever been for a culture war episode because we're going to rag on Star Wars and Marvel and just talk culture and comics and all that stuff.
Yes.
And Magic the Gathering.
Oh, good. Yeah, I love Jeremy. He had me on his show a couple months ago. Guy's great.
Ian's got his Magic deck right there.
Yeah, check out Urza. It's Urza High. What is it, Lord High Artificer? You want to talk about a High Artificer, man? The one and only.
Yeah, I beat him in 3 turns.
Okay. Your deck's busted. What's the name of the commander?
Nadu.
Nadu. It should be banned. I agree with all those other people that were saying that.
I don't think
it's
they're
too
gonna ban it.
powerful. It's just I just waited turn 3. I mean, you were watching.
Yeah,
you did 40 things, I think, or more.
It was
like
bonkers.
You want me to concede? He's like, no, I want you to watch me do this. Or no,
Turn. I had
I wanna see.
opening hand Shuko, Monocrypt.
That's busted.
You lose.
It's rough.
But I was playing Thassa, which is a lower powered deck, just to be nice, and Ian was beating the crap out of me. And I was like, all right, Ian, I'm going to show you what's going on.
Have at it. I got what was coming to me.
But it is sad that a game like Magic, for those that don't know what it is, it's a strategy card game. It's like poker and chess combined, has been completely dominated by woke. Let me just explain to you why people are like, don't play it, it's a woke game. I'm like, I want to take back this culture. I don't want to give it up. And the same is true for skateboarding and for music and things like that. This is a card game. It's the first card game ever made. It has been taken over by woke
First collectible
entities.
card game.
No, it's the first.
Poker.
Sure. Right. Yes. The first collectible card game. And everything else is not. Yu-Gi-Oh! So popular is basically a cartoon about people playing Magic the Gathering. That's essentially what they were doing. Let me explain to you. There are 5 colors of magic, right? So you've heard in movies there's black magic, there's white magic. Well, magic has 5 colors: blue, red, green, black, white. There are cards that will say something like destroy target black creature. And it's just a reference to a zombie. So they've banned cards like this because they're racist. You cannot play with the card anymore. It is a racist card.
Do you know what the name of that card is? Or what some of those are?
Well, there's Cleanse.
Cleanse destroys all black creatures.
And they banned it because it has
and I'm like, a bunch of like black shadowy creatures getting ripped apart on the
They're demons, they're vampires and ghouls. It's
Black
like
arts, black magic.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
been around
not-
forever.
in the
It's not a
last couple of
racial
years,
term.
they've made it racist.
Yes. Yeah.
Nuts. They literally banned it from tournament play
Because it's racist.
because of the imagery on the card.
What
It's
if they
so
had
crazy.
rebranded to like onyx creatures, like an alternative word for black?
I think that would be fine by those
I think
people.
but I believe
Yeah.
no, but I believe there was actually a discussion
Really?
at one point, and in some instances where the color of black is the cards are black, they've made them lightly purple. It is nuts how insane these people have gotten.
They could have called it dark and light magic. I mean, they didn't have to call it white and black, but that's what Richard Garfield did in
Even then,
1992.
hold on.
Colors in
They
this
have
context.
even then the woke have claimed that chess is racist because it's white and black.
And the white people go first, obviously.
That's right.
The Europeans attack
Yep.
first.
Let's read super chats, and it's fun. But anyway, I'm excited to hang out with Jeremy. We're going to go through all of that stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Clint Torres says, "Howdy, people. Howdy, Clint. Welcome back." Okay, we got Chafed BM. Great name. I don't know why they were so quick to get rid of Biden. He perfectly represents the Democrat Party. Well, it's not so quick. It's been a long time.
He wasn't doing their bidding. They're bid enough.
Robert Mares says if Gavin Newsom is the candidate, all the ads need to be focused on SB 145. Just saying.
What is that?
Yeah, what's that one?
More information. SB 145. I think it's going to be Kamala Harris. I mean, I think at this point there's just no other option.
She's worse.
Horrible, and it would have to be I don't know, but I could see malfeasance and her getting elected. It would just be so horrible.
Maybe. Oof. Jason Dixon says Timcast.com. That's right, buddy. Timcast.com. Good job, Rob. Says, I'd love to say happy birthday to my wife, Jamie. She's the most amazing mother, and I'm blessed to have her raising our children. Thank you, Timcast.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, right on. Cameron Keir says, honest question. Who do you guys think is running the country? It's certainly not the guy who crashed and burned on that debate stage. I really don't think there is a centralized figure running the show. I believe you have this effectively the political elite class we call the establishment or the uniparty, but there is no one person in charge. There are certainly people of various levels of influence, and so what happens? I think certainly there are strong influence, like the Obamas being like, Joe, stop. Joe, for a while, watch his videos in 2020. We thought that was bad back then, and it's kind of crazy. You look at those videos back then and you can understand why I was saying like, no, I think Joe's in charge. He's just, his brain's no good. Now it's like, okay, his brain is so no good. Jill's in charge.
Yeah, Jill and like Jeff Zients, his chief of staff.
Yeah, she's
people
worm-tongued.
who are around him every day and able to sort of be like, okay, now we need to talk about.
Well,
this
if you
document.
look at like who was in his cabinet and who was brought in, he's very close to corporatists like BlackRock, Larry Fink, but also like Jen Psaki and Blinken come from these, these K Street consulting and advising firms, and that's where the kind of, or I think the meat, the process of the meat grinder is like kind of like behind the scenes where it's made. So I think like there's consultancies and they conspire with the DNC and they sort of get these masterminds, or we can debate how much of masterminds they really are, but these corrupt people, and they just get to the top and they represent coalitions of corporate interests. Yeah. Essentially, Hollywood is one. Talent firms, unions.
Because every political figure, every elected official is going to have a staff that they turn to say, like, I need more information on this, or whatever. Like, it's not unreasonable that they would be surrounded by people who have maybe expertise in areas they don't. The problem with Biden is that he is dependent on them in a way that I don't think other people are. And again, that speaks largely to the
three of his
decline.
Three of his aides were just subpoenaed for allegedly doing presidential duties that Joe Biden should be doing. It'll be interesting. They're going to be in a deposition. There wasn't a public hearing scheduled at this point, but I find that very interesting.
When was that? When did that go through?
That was this week, like House oversight. Is subpoenaed to deposition 3 of it.
I mean, and you brought up his cabinet. Lloyd Austin disappeared and was hospitalized, and nobody knew, including the White House. I mean, this speaks both to a problem with the Department of Defense, but also to the fact that no one thought it was even worth mentioning to Joe Biden. Shows a lot of respect for leadership here. Again, he's come out and said, well, I had prostate cancer, so I don't want to talk about it, but he was in intensive care. I mean, there's a serious question of who was leading that department. I think it's maybe reflective of his work environment. Yes.
Did you see Lloyd Austin just sort of in awe at the NATO summit? Joe Biden's big boy speech, press conference at the NATO summit, and he's sitting there with Blinken, and they're just in awe as he, introduces Zelensky as President Putin.
Yeah. It was rough. It was not good. And
they're like, well.
But what's interesting is like some of this is inescapable, and they're like, yeah, even mainstream progressive media is like, yeah, he did do that, didn't he? They have to admit it's so obvious. But I also saw, I know there's one opinion piece from the Miami Herald that came out within the hour after it was over and said, it went fine. He didn't have any major gaffes. And it was like, oh, so you've already you pre-wrote this. You didn't even watch the press conference.
Did you see Biden say that he's going to put South Korea and Japan back together?
Yeah, what was that all about?
I thought
he
that
said,
was really
what
creative.
am I doing? Is that the He's talking about South Korea. What am I doing? It's like,
based Japanese imperialist
Korea.
Joe Biden.
What am I doing?
Japan is like, excuse us? What? No, No, I think there are these moments. I mean, like, everyone will stumble over words. I forget names regularly. There is a level of, like, you don't want to take something that really is not a big deal and blow it out of proportion. But some of these big moments that he has as the president of the United States to speak clearly, to, I don't know, identify his vice president correctly, he just completely fumbles. And I think there is no way for anyone to walk around the fact that he is reflecting badly both on the country, but also his administration. Whoever is staffing him, whoever's in his ear whispering, must be just drinking heavily after he walks off stage.
We got this one from S.A. Federale. He says, are you guys sure about having Ian with a lotus eater? I love you all, but this might convince Chuck that he needs to accelerate dissolving nationalism all over the West and declare Order 66.
Who's Chuck?
Prince Charles. No, King Charles now.
Emperor.
Excuse me.
Emperor.
Well, no. Again, if only. King Charles is. He is not as interested in the Five Eyes. He was one of the founding members of the World Economic Forum, so he's certainly sort of interested in global politics and being a member of the managerial class. But he's not actively exerting any executive power because. If you think about it, he could just walk into Parliament with the army tomorrow and completely dissolve it and say, I'm taking over for a short time, fixing all the problems, and then we're instituting Parliament afterwards. And frankly, things are so bad in Britain right now, people would probably support it. But he's not going to do that. One, because he doesn't want to wield executive power, and two, because he's not on our side.
Yeah, I would think if he tried to do that, the Praetorian Guard would slaughter him. Basically, it's that stage of the Roman decline where the Praetorian Guard takes over, and it's like the 4 emperors in 4 years, basically, because none of them would do the right thing, do their bidding. So I think that's basically where the British Empire is at right now. Is they're like, the emperor's not in control anymore.
The civil service practically runs everything, kind of like an East India trading company. Yeah.
All right, let's grab this one from Nicosia Connection. Biden isn't the issue, Democrats are. Red wave in Brooklyn, New York, last presidential and governor elections. New York's been in play. Republican Party should have spent more time in the state. NRA should foot lawyer bills for those in Rikers. Free Dexter Taylor.
Isn't this something that Trump and a lot of Trump supporters talked about when he had the rally in the Bronx? I mean, Democrats consistently think that they win the Bronx, but actually they don't go there at all. They don't spend any time there. They just assume these voters are captured and would never think of voting anything but blue. And he had massive turnout there. I mean, people were really excited to see him in this place that, again, Republicans don't always. I think I mentioned this earlier in the show, but I think there are times that Republicans could be more creative or more strategic, and they sort of buy the Democrats' propaganda that things that are blue will always stay blue, when Democrats don't don't say that about strictly red areas.
Well, New York's purportedly a battleground state. I mean, that came out this week.
Trump's been saying that. When I was at the New York Young Republicans Gala last year, he was on stage being like, we're going to win New York. And it was just the funniest thing. I mean, I really think that if you had the mentality that if you are Trumpian enough or MAGA enough, you could potentially win all kinds of states that are written off. It would make a more interesting election. People would, again, be forced to be a little creative when problem solving.
Mm-hmm. Let's go. Wyatt Kaldenberg says, it is not in my soul. In a 2022 BBC interview, Michelle Obama also said she detests questions about running for president. This is pretty clear. Yeah. Well, all right then.
It's the thing that I sort of respect about her, which is like, she got her kid into Harvard, she made her money, she gets to do whatever she wants. Like, you know, if you live a life of luxury and you aren't interested in any kind of service or any kind of power, then why would you become the president of the United States or the prime minister of a country?
Just to keep the Obama agenda going. I mean,
I think the Obama agenda right now is to like drink mojitos and hang out.
I think Barack Obama's agenda is to still be a power broker behind the scenes.
And he's doing that. They don't need to do anything differently. Their lives are
send
fine.
Valerie Jarrett out to have, unscripted meetings in Delaware.
I'm sure George Clooney thought up that op-ed all on his own.
Also, not being funny, why would you waste your strongest weapon on an election where, if this backfires on you, it looks really bad? Like,
it's openly saying there's division.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Okay, let's say they put Michelle Obama up for it, and Trump wins anyway. How does the establishment have any credibility after that? Like, if she was going to run, she may as well wait another 4 years.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
Let's grab some more. We got Grant Nick. He says, hey, Timcast, working on a freedom truck idea. Square body with Gadsden, and American flags in college for medicine. And he says, love y'all. Doc in training, also likes wrenching. Specialization is for insects. Well, okay.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I like
Is that
that. I like the
dating app
idea.
profile. I mean,
No, it should be though. This guy's saying he's going to be a doctor and also he could fix your car. I mean, there are a lot of girls that this is like a prime man right now.
Yeah.
All right. Mike Z's says, y'all mentioned how man is a social creature on Culture War. Funny enough, the Bible says Adam was literally lonely, God even giving Adam full reign to pick a mate. Just think, we were one bad pick away from the furries getting what they wanted. Just one guy and a bunch of animals.
Yeah, when you're the smartest guy in the room, sometimes it's very lonely.
it was a good culture war though this
Yeah,
morning.
Ian
you
gets
should
it.
Go and watch
You know
it.
it, Tim. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, it was a really good show this morning.
Did you guys find out if Phil's a communist?
Phil said he now agrees with us on everything.
That's hot.
Yeah.
Did he
Oh, you guys
actually
are
say
like
that?
He did, yeah. He said, I agree with all you guys' criticisms of liberalism, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Phil's a wonderful gentleman and he's very humble and we are very persuasive with these accents, so
And that was
Their only argument was one thing. They were like, Phil, but you realize this makes you a communist. He was like, no, I agree with everything you said.
Anti-communist.
I am an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. And also, that was Phil's last show with Timcast for a little while because he is going on tour. So you guys should go check
yes,
it out.
dude.
Megadeth.
Kill All Enemies
Mudvayne.
tour?
I don't really know. Kill all enemies. But he says it every night, and I know I will at least miss him.
Wow, that's
I don't
gonna
know
be
if anyone else
hot.
will.
we hope that he does a UK tour stop and comes and visits us. It
Would you open for him? Would you perform musically to open for Phil?
I cannot play any instrument. Some of my colleagues can. You're going to have to get me very drunk to do any karaoke, I'm afraid.
Okay, Phil, you've heard it here first.
Deal.
All right, let's grab some more super chats. What is this? I don't know what that is. Who do we have here?
Or it's Destroy All Enemies tour, not Kill All Enemies.
Yeah, destroy.
All Enemies
Not
tour.
kill them, just destroy them.
Andrew Ho says Musk voted Democrat in 2020. It started when the Biden administration held a convention with all motor industry regarding EVs, but did not invite one company, the original Tesla. Yup. He got snubbed, and I think he tweeted something like, I don't understand. We're leading the charge on this fighting carbon emissions and climate change. Why are we being ignored? And
And he said, I don't like you.
yeah, yup.
They don't want to solve the problem. They just want power.
It's
But
just
but
emotion.
but I think it's actually much more simple. These other companies are in the fold, and it wasn't so much that they didn't like Elon, is that he's an outsider, and so Elon is doing this hard work, and he's like, we have like the premier EVs. Everybody loves our brand, and you've excluded me. And they're like, well, Biden's thinking I control these people.
Yeah.
I don't control him. He's not coming anywhere near me. So then Elon was like, so be it.
That's how
I'd
you know
love
their
to
cause-
actually ask him about
Space
it.
then.
That's how you know their cause is superficial, and it's just of convenience. It's a way to have an artificial market and to get the government grift and
Or to say, they'll shut down a traditional car company or a traditional fossil fuel or coal mine or something like that. Then they'll come in and be like, but now we're building an EV plant here and look at all these jobs we've created, not acknowledging the fact that they have actually destroyed a local
and
economy.
block nuclear power plants.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. All right. SA Federale's back. He says, anybody remember the 90s when Sun Micro and Oracle worked closely with Microsoft and the Delphi programming language was all an attempt at early AI? Kind of like they told you it was an Apollo cult. I don't know anything about it. I was too young. Do not know. Andrew Ho says Obama was an intelligence plant. His name is also Barry Sotero, from his stepfather, Lolo Sotero, from Indonesia, who was a millionaire and also a top CIA contractor there. He is cousins with the Bush family.
That's true that his stepdad
is that all
CIA
true?
contractor? Really?
Oh, I didn't see that.
I don't know about that.
Possible, but I need to see the
What?
receipts.
We all have something
It's on the
to-
internet, so it must be true. So
I need to see receipts, but that's a good theory. Just need receipts.
Kobe
Probably out there.
Kobe Skonard says, hey, Tim and team, I'm a CEO of a Milwaukee tech company. We're on the cusp of the yellow red zone for RNC. Happy to host you for the week for Timcast IRL if you're looking for space. So we've got a big office. We've got a space already. Everything's set up. Crew's already en route, I believe. They're probably arriving very soon. And then we're arriving first thing in the morning. I'm not actually going in the RNC at all. But everyone's going to be there. So, we're going to hang out and we're going to have fun. And definitely not going to the DNC because I've grown quite fond of living. Yeah, I don't know. I say that's a joke. I don't know how bad it will be in Chicago. I imagine there'll be riots in Chicago, such a raucous place as it is. Look, man, I'm from there. Me and my brother are getting off 290 onto Independence, and some guy driving by us just points a gun out the window and shoots at us.
When?
I don't know. This is 15 years ago.
Oh my God.
But I mean, that's just Chicago. And it's not like you're getting shot at every day. I think I've been in the vicinity of shootings 5 or 6 times, of actual attempts at killing.
It's a big city too. I was in the north side, like what is it? Up the Brown line, Lawrence and Damon area, and it was really nice. I thought it was really nice.
What area is
3
that one?
years I lived up
Been
there.
too long.
It was really cool.
I wasn't a big north side guy.
Yeah,
What about the south
I've
side?
never went to the south side. It was like two different cities, kind of, in a lot of ways.
It's a massive place.
It's huge.
Yeah, but considering all the violence, the rioting, and the insanity that's expected, plus the police are, Chicago, it's super corrupt. The cops are super corrupt there. Yeah, dirty cops. There's like a video, I remember this like 20 years ago, like a meter maid gave a ticket to a squad car because he was illegally parked and he wouldn't move. And then he grabbed her by the throat and slammed her up against the wall because he's like, I'm a cop, I can do whatever I want. Yeah, it's a dirty city. Plus, you had that guy who was electrocuting all those people into forced confessions. What was that guy's name? Someone want to Google that?
Was he a cop?
Yeah.
Well, Chicago cops have been like that since Daly. I mean, you had the 68 convention, the uprising, with the yippies and all of that. And, one of the, like a 17-year-old pulled out a gun and, they shot him dead. And then the left turned him into a cause célèbre. So I guess that playbook's been around for a long time.
Chicago famously has the police run black sites. These are seemingly abandoned buildings in the middle of nowhere where they take suspects to beat and torture.
Yeah, that's a story from truthout.org. Chicago police tortured victims with electric shocks, burns, and...
Yeah, what's his name?
Oh, I'm trying to find
I always forget his name.
Is this just gang?
Under Commander
it's a
John
cartel.
Burge.
Yeah, John Burge.
Burge, Burge,
I think it's Burge. Yeah, famous story. I mean, internationally. He would, mostly black suspects, he'd bring them in and be like, confess to the crime. And they'd be like, I didn't do it. And then he'd get a cattle prod and just say you did it. And then eventually they'd be like, some of them refuse. They're like, I'm not confessing to a crime I didn't commit no matter what you do. Some people just gave in. And there was, I don't know if it was hundreds or thousands of innocent people in prison because this guy was just forcing confessions because they're evil people, dude. So I've had my run-ins. Not super excited to go to a place where you've got far leftists attacking people. Then you've got communist police officers serving a communist government in the city. I'm just not interested in being anywhere near that. Like, I got no problem going to Chicago to see family and everything. I do that all the time.
Yeah, the parks are really nice.
But not when the far left is engaging in a conflict with corrupt communist police officers and it's just this weird commie battle going
It's going to
on.
be the most confusing DNC. I don't even know what the hell's going to happen.
Bring your
at that place.
popcorn, but watch from afar.
All right, Colgate V1 says, if Magic the Gathering banned cards that they themselves named black for being racist, wouldn't that be them admitting they made a racist part of the game?
Oh,
Different ownership. They
And-
sold to Wizards of the Coast.
But an independent skate truck company abandoned their logo after like 50 years because some leftists complained it looked like an iron cross. And that's racist, so they got rid of it, and now I own it.
Didn't Macklemore
I
apologize for having a haircut that seemed too fascist or something?
I don't know, but I will take at every opportunity, at every chance, the opportunity to assert ownership over that symbol, which I declared several years ago and sold products. And let me grab it while we're here.
Yeah,
To
and
make sure we can.
we should do an official black on
What was
white
that
night.
company's name that had the... Yeah, what's that company's name again?
Oh, this is the Timcast Skate Company logo, if you ever see it anywhere. We have been selling products for years. We've publicly announced it on our show to tens of millions of people that this is our logo. We own it. It is trademarked by us, the Timcast Skate Company. You see, that's it. See, this used to be the independent truck company logo, but it was racist, so they got rid of it. They've abandoned their logo, publicly stated they want nothing to do with it, and I immediately said, I'm using it, it's mine. And we had a bunch of these boards made and sold. So, what are you going to do? I think certainly at this point, what are they going to argue? They we've been using the logo. And the funny thing is, if you go to some of the oldest skate parks in the world, you'll see that symbol up somewhere. They slap the stickers around. And this company was like, well, we don't want to be called racist by a group of degenerates. Let's abandon our corporate logo. And I said, I humbly accept. Thank you, independent. It is no longer your logo. And for now, I think we're going on 2 years of us having owned that symbol.
Beautiful.
You know what I
What's
think?
the classic logo? It's from like in the
you know-
80s they had it.
Well before that.
Yeah,
You know what I think I'll
before
do next? I think I'm going to issue a more solid public statement and file with the U.S. Trademark Office to make a more official assertion, because I'll be completely honest about how I view this. They've abandoned this logo because they're scared of being racist. So be it. I will take it. If they want to come out publicly and assert ownership of that logo, I welcome them to do it. Please come out and get into a public battle with me over who owns that logo. I don't care who does. Because I tell you, if it was like Steven Crowder who came out and said he owned it, we would both laugh a healthy chortle and cheers our Stein mugs together and drink beer and then have a joke about who actually owns it. If a leftist organization wants to take it, they can have it. Just got to come here and you got to assert it and make that argument. I would love to see independent truck company, one of the most iconic skate brands, publicly declare that is and will be their logo. They removed it from their products. They removed it from their website and they said, we disavow.
It's not even the Iron Cross. It's such a crazy
No,
move.
it's not. You're right.
All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com, click join us. I got to go get on a plane. This is going to be so brutal. But we got to do what we got to do. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. And make sure you do that. Again, become a member to support our work, but we'll see you out in the Midwest. I look forward to eating cheese in Milwaukee. Kyle, do you want to shout anything out?
No, just shout out to everybody watching. Thank you for tuning in and hearing the banner. That's all I got to say.
All right. Can they follow you somewhere?
Yeah, just X at Kyle N.A. Becker is great. I'm pretty active on there, so hopefully
Right
you
on.
like what you see.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim. You can follow me at con_Tomlinson on Twitter. You can find all of my work, including Tomlinson Talks, every Wednesday afternoon on lotuseaters.com. I also appear on the New Culture Forum, write for a couple of magazines and the like. And I really enjoyed being here the past couple of days. Look forward to coming back to the States sometime.
It was an honor and a privilege to have you on 3 shows while you were here. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Can't wait to sleep.
Yeah, Carl was done for the night.
Yeah, he was,
I'm
yeah.
sleeping. Are you guys going to the RNC?
No. We're going home after this.
Well, I'm Ian Crossland. Thanks for coming, everyone. Follow me at Ian Crossland. Anytime I want to give a special shout out to Serge, who's just crushing it over to my left over here. Look at that guy's hair. I mean, do you even have a camera on you anymore, Serge?
Oh, Serge is a secret.
Beautiful
now.
hair, by the way. I mean, it really looks stunning, dude.
Serge is going to release his curl DIY, what products he uses very soon, probably on his personal Twitter account. He's so mad that he doesn't have a mic right now to yell at me. I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. It's been great to have you both here. You can find my work and all the work of the writers at scnr.com, at Timcast News on Instagram, Twitter. They're really great, and you should see what they're up to. If you want to follow me personally, I'm on Twitter at Hannah Claire B. I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. Thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good night.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. We're going to be back. We got clips throughout the weekend. We're back on Monday from Milwaukee, and we will see you all then.